Hello, hey, this is Warren Redlick. Thank you so much for watching. For those of you who are new to how I do things, this is my Sunday live presentation. You can see here, if you're watching later and you want to go to a specific spot, you can go down and catch the Tesla Q1 part of the video, or the SpaceX part of the video, or the Q&A part of the video. I have that all laid out for you. And as you can see, we're going to do a Patreon question first. Then we're going to talk about, this is the long part here, is we're going to talk about Tesla Q1. This is going to be this is going to be most of this other than the Q&A. A little bit about SpaceX, a little bit of other news, some more Patreon questions, and YouTube executive content channel member questions, and then the Q&A. So let's get into it. We'll start with the Patreon question. First of all, I want to thank my Vasa law firm in Sweden, all my Patreon supporters. The Patreon question I'm going to start with relates to the Tesla content. Question was, Warren, what do you think the cost of full self-driving will be in 2022, paid in full and or monthly subscriptions? When robotaxis launch, what do you think the platform fee will be? Example, 30% Tesla, vehicle owner 70%. So there's really two questions in there. So let's cover the first one. I think FSD is going to increase in price. I think we're going to see FSD increase from $10,000 now to $20,000 at some point in 2022. Maybe an intermediate steps of 12, 15,000. It depends on whether they get it working. You know, once it's working, once it's going well, then you get to this point where, okay, we're going to amp it up. We're going to increase the price of FSD. So that's the price of paid in full. The monthly subscription is a harder one to predict. I don't know why Tesla would do that, so I'm probably the wrong person to ask this question. But to me, I think they might have a deal where you get the first month for $99. And then the monthly subscription goes up to something like $399, $299, $399, $499. Because if you're paying $10,000 for FSD, and somebody else is getting it for $199 a month, which is $2,400 a year, they don't actually reach your $10,000 for 4 years. And a lot of people don't hold a car for 4 years. So it's not very compelling if the price is too low to go out and buy FSD. And if the all-in price for FSD rises to $15,000 or $20,000, then a subscription price of even $499, that's like $6,000. That's getting close, like $499 a month. But what I think it's going to happen is there's going to be an introductory subscription price of, say, $99 a month to get people hooked on FSD. And that will convert more people who might have bought FSD but weren't sure. They get that 1 or 2 or even 3 months at $99 a month, so they get to experience FSD, and then they can't live without it. And then they'll either pay the $499 a month, or they'll up it and pay the $10,000 or $20,000 that it costs to buy all in. That's where I think that goes. What do I think the platform fee will be? I think this is a pretty good guess that Tesla will take 30% of revenue and the vehicle owners will take 70%. I wouldn't be surprised if early on Tesla gives more to the vehicle owners, because it's going to be about building the network out and getting the network running rather than about Tesla making profits from the early days. Okay, so that's the first Patreon question. We're going to cover some more Patreon questions later. Let's get into the meat of this video. We're going to talk about Tesla. So the first thing I want to say is there are videos you can watch out there. Like this is Galileo Russell's video, Hyperchange, with Mayor Thacker, I think is his name, where they're talking about really, really tight specifics on what's going to happen in Q1. And you can see in this particular clip, he's talking about these one-time charges from Q4 that he thinks won't happen from the Q4 of 2020, that he thinks won't happen in Q1 of 2021. He might or may not be right. You can also watch Rob Maurer's video on the Tesla Daily channel. He really goes in depth into these quarterly numbers. I don't like to do the quarterly numbers. It's not my thing. I don't really care that much about the short-term pricing that we're going to see for, the short-term earnings numbers. It is something that Wall Street cares about. That's going to come up in the questions later. But for me, that's not that important. I do want to focus on a couple of things, though. I ran my own numbers on a couple particular things. One, the biggest revenue line for Tesla is vehicle revenue, automotive revenue. And the sense that a lot of people have that I sort of share is with Model S and X sales reduced. There were about 18,000 Model S's and X's sold in the fourth quarter, only 2,000 sold in the first quarter. Those are higher priced vehicles with higher margins. So if those vehicles aren't being sold, then that would shift the average selling price down to the Model 3 and Model X, which are with Model 3 and Model Y, which are lower priced vehicles. So that in theory that makes sense. The problem is that Model S and X are already a very small part of Tesla's story because they sold 18,000 in the fourth quarter. They sold 180,000 total. So it's only 10% of the total. So knocking it from 10% to 1% isn't that big of an impact. And there's another impact I didn't see a lot of people talking about when I watched what other people were talking about these numbers. There's been a shift from Model 3 to Model Y. Not that there's less Model 3s, there's just more Model Ys. So the average selling price in the Model 3, Model Y category is going up. I don't know how much it's going up, but it's going up. Model 3s sell for less, Model Ys sell for more. The average selling price of Model Y is pretty clearly over $50,000, where the average selling price for Model 3 might be under $50,000. So I think there's a push up in the average selling price because of the increase in Model Y sales. That's really notable in China, where a lot of the increase in sales have come from. So Rob Maurer was predicting a fall off in automotive revenue from 9.3 billion down to 9 billion. I think we're going to see it pretty steady, right? When I ran my numbers, when I predicted my numbers, I came right in around 9.3 billion that the quarterly automotive revenue for Q1 2021 should be about the same as quarterly automotive revenue for Q4 2020. The other thing you saw, let me put this back up here again. He's talking about one-off charges from the fourth quarter of 2020. And I think that we can't know what one-off charges Tesla will have in any given quarter. They make accounting decisions that are really hard for us to predict. Are they going to pay off some loans and then have a higher interest charge that quarter? And that can depress the earnings number, the earnings per share number that a lot of Wall Street looks at. Is there going to be increased CapEx or increased R&D because of some reason? I think there might be a structural charge, or what do you call it, a restructuring charge for Model S and Model X. There's this whole big question about what happened with S and X, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. So I think there's a lot of, and these are really accounting things. These don't really necessarily indicate much about the performance of the overall business, which is something I'm much more concerned about. When you get into these accounting things and you're going to say what's going to happen in this quarter that's going to affect earnings, there's too many little twists and turns that we can't predict, just like we didn't predict them before. We can't predict them. So I don't try to predict those. What I do think we're going to see is, and this has been consistent over the last couple quarters, is we're going to see, and I think this is a key detail to watch, how much more cash does Tesla have on hand? So they've been growing up the cash pile about $2 or $3 billion a quarter. I think we're going to see the cash pile grow another $3 billion. Could be more, but I think we're going to see that cash pile grow another $3 billion. And so then there's this larger question. What I look for in the quarterly call is not what little games did they play with the accounting, because it's just what, I'm not criticizing Zach Kirkhorn for playing games. It's just what they do is they get into these accounting games, and a lot of people on Wall Street and a lot of other people focus on these little accounting games. And I don't think they matter that much. I do think we might see some increased capital expenditure in R&D, and that's a good sign, because Zach Kirkhorn said in the last quarter they might bring some capital expenditure forward, which positions them to grow faster in the future. So seeing an increase in capital expenditures or R&D is a good sign for the long-term future of the business. It will be bad in the short term for earnings per share, but it's good in the long term. So what we're really looking for, what I'm really looking for in this first quarter investor call are what I think are the three biggest drivers for future growth. Number one, batteries. Number two, full self-driving. And number three, Megapack. Those are the three parts of the business that I think really, really drive the profit more than anything else. So, and I'm going to get to those in a minute. I think the other big thing that we're going to be looking for is what happened with Model S and Model X refresh. In the first quarter call, Elon said they were going to start delivering S and X in February, and they didn't deliver S and X in February, and they didn't deliver S and X in March, and they haven't delivered S and X yet in April. That's not a good sign, to be honest. When you're looking at the business, I don't think S and X are an important part of the business anymore, but it's just not a good look for the CEO to say we're going to start delivering in February, and then we've had this massive delay with no explanation. So I see some trouble with that. So then, getting back to the three big drivers, batteries, full self-driving, Megapack, how are the 4680 cell lines doing? In the last quarterly call, Drew Baglino said they were ahead of schedule. I've had two sources tell me that they're ahead of schedule on developing 4680 cell lines, that the Cato pilot line, the pilot line in Fremont, is 30% ahead of what they anticipated. They're producing cells in volumes with quality in greater than the expected volume 3 months ahead of when they expected to get there. And if that continues, that means the business grows faster, quicker. That is great news. Let's hope that continues. I think we're going to hear more about that. I think that I've asked a question which I think might get answered. I think there are going to be other questions about 4680 cells and battery production. So hopefully we'll hear more about that. Another big question, how are Berlin and Austin doing? There's a lot of rumors out there that the Berlin factory is being held up by German regulation, the German government regulation. Everything I've seen has been more like a rumor than a fact. So it'd be interesting to see whether we hear anything about progress in Berlin and Austin. Austin, as far as we can tell, is going gangbusters. Not seeing a lot of holdup there. So actually, one of the big questions that I don't think we're going to hear in this call is which factory is going to produce a vehicle first? Is it going to be Austin or is it going to be Berlin? If you went back 6 months, everyone was predicting Berlin would deliver first. Right now, I think it's looking like a close call. And there's really no regulatory holdup for Texas like there seems to be for Berlin. So it wouldn't surprise me if Texas ends up delivering first. And I don't know if we're going to cover that. Big thing that we're hoping to hear, are there any updates on full self-driving? Right? We're waiting for Tesla to release version 9 of the FSD beta. We're waiting for that beta to get rolled out to more customers. They were at 1,000. We think they're now at 2,000 customers with FSD beta. Are they going to roll out version 9 and put it out to 10,000 customers? And how long until it goes into general release? That's a big thing. Hopefully, we're going to hear more about FSD. That will give us a better sense of where the company's going in the medium term, and into the future. Another interesting question about batteries that, given that Model S and Model X didn't deliver, and it seems like production of Model S and Model X stopped, the batteries that Panasonic makes for Model S and X, the 1865 or 18650 cells that they make in Nevada, they didn't stop making the cells. So what happened to the cells? So I have a ballpark guess there. I'm not saying I'm correct. It's just a guess that they took those cells and they put them in Powerwalls and maybe in Megapacks. So we might see an increase in Powerwall sales and Megapack sales in the first quarter, because this started back in February, even January. So you had 2 solid months where they were piling up 1865 cells. Did they build more Powerwalls? Did they build more Megapacks to take advantage of the batteries they couldn't use in Model S and X and send those out and make money on those? That's a possibility. So don't be surprised if we see a jump in energy storage revenue of maybe 300. I worked out the numbers. It actually came out to like $800 million increase in revenue if all those batteries, if 15,000 Model S and X batteries, about 100 kilowatt hours each pack, if all of those went to, because they did 15,000 vehicles a quarter typically with those vehicles, if all of those batteries went into Powerwalls, the price of Powerwall being what it is, you would see an $800 million jump in revenue for Powerwall. I don't think they could deploy them all. I don't think they could make that many Powerwalls, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a jump in energy storage revenue, and that would be something we might see them do with those batteries. Then the next thing I wanted to cover is questions. There are questions on say.com or saytechnologies.com. So these are in questions from retail investors. Let me see if I can make that a little bigger. So the first two questions are from Robert N. That's Rob Maurer from Tesla podcast, Tesla Daily. His first question is, how is Dojo coming along? So this is a question that's very likely to be asked of the Tesla team during the investor call. How is Dojo coming along? Could Dojo unlock an Amazon Web Services like business line for Tesla over the next few years? I think Elon has already answered the second part of the question, that he thinks that that will happen, or that that's something that they would consider doing. I don't know how much they're going to tell us about Dojo, but it's a great question. I'm really eager to hear what kind of answer they give. I think this is a great question by Rob. Second question here about the solar roof. The recent price changes on solar roof have been a bit discouraging for customers and investors. Could Tesla share more about solar roof challenges and if the outlook has changed at all? Like, is it 1,000 plus per week that they're hoping to produce and deliver? So for those who don't know, I have a solar roof order in. I'm waiting to hear from Tesla about my solar roof order. I've done everything I'm supposed to do. I'm waiting to hear back from them. Are they increasing my price? What are they doing? It's pretty clear that, I don't know if this is my fault or their fault, the size of my roof was underestimated in the initial bid, and it's actually, the amount of square footage of my roof is double what was thought. So I think that might increase my price about $15,000. So we'll see what that's going to do. And you know, if the price and if other prices go up high enough, I may end up not doing a solar roof. So if they are able to get solar roof scaled really large, this ultimately could be a very large source of revenue and a very big profit driver for Tesla. So it's an important question. What are the challenges? I actually wonder if this is probably a few years down the road. One of the biggest challenges for Tesla doing solar roofs is just getting contractors to install the roofs, or bringing roof installation in-house. That's a huge challenge for the Tesla team. I don't think they've solved it. I think this is an area where they've really struggled. So I think if you go down a few years, if Dojo works and Dojo succeeds in training cars to drive, then how long is it before Dojo trains robots to install roofs? I think we may get to a point where a lot of the work done of installing roofs, the Tesla brings it in-house and deploys robots to do roof installation. That way, if somebody, one of the, people don't think about this, but people fall off roofs. And if somebody falls off a roof, they get hurt really badly. So if you could take that dangerous job and put it in the hands of a robot, which if it falls, costs money, if it damages the robot, but, no one dies, no one gets paralyzed, it doesn't hurt a human in the same way that it hurts a robot. I wouldn't be surprised if Tesla's thinking about getting there with, maybe using Boston Dynamics robots or something. So, third question is from Emmett Peppers. He says, Master of Coin, I believe that's a reference to Zach Kirkhorn. Can you tell us anything about Tesla's future plans in digital currency space, or when any such major developments might be revealed? I don't think this is a particularly good question. I don't think they're going to say very much about it, but we'll see. It's a question I think a lot of people are curious about. So, look, they're doing Bitcoin. They've already said that they're accepting Bitcoin. They're going to hold Bitcoin. They're not going to sell Bitcoin. Is there any indication that Tesla's going to do something else in digital currency, like if they issue their own digital currency or take Dogecoin? I haven't seen any indication that Tesla's going to do anything like that. So I don't see this as being that good of a question, but we'll see what kind of answer. And maybe Emmett's smarter than me, and it'll turn out to be a great question with a great answer. The last question on this list is my question, which, by the way, Rob's the first two questions. Rob did not think this was a good question. So I think it's a great question, obviously. And I think this question is going to be answered. It's the fourth question of the retail investors. I think they'll get to it. I asked, you indicated Tesla would produce 100 gigawatt hours of 4680 cells in 2022. How many gigawatt hours of cells do you expect to buy from suppliers in 2022? And what do you expect the mix of supplier batteries to be between nickel, cobalt, aluminum, nickel, manganese, lithium iron phosphate, and other chemistries? This is an important question if we get an answer, because if the answer is we expect 100 gigawatt hours of batteries from suppliers in 2022 versus 200 gigawatt hours of batteries in 2022, that's a real indication where Tesla thinks their revenue is going to be in 2022. We already know they've said 100 gigawatt hours of their own cells. So if suppliers are only going to supply 50 gigawatt hours of cells, then Tesla's operating from a total of 150 gigawatt hours, and we're looking at 150 times, we're looking at $900 billion in revenue roughly in 2022. If they say 200 gigawatt hours from suppliers, that's 300 total, and we might be looking at close to $2 trillion in revenue in 2022. So that's why it's a pretty big difference. And the mix between nickel, cobalt, aluminum, nickel, manganese, lithium iron phosphate, that suggests typically the lithium iron phosphate cells lead to lower revenue. They're lower cost, but they also lead to lower revenue. And the nickel manganese, we don't know whether they're expecting those to be produced yet. So a lot of interesting, nickel, cobalt, aluminum is the only cells, I think, or sorry, currently they get nickel, cobalt, aluminum from Panasonic and LG Chem, and they get lithium iron phosphate from CATL. So if we get answers to these questions, and Rob thinks we won't, Rob thinks this is too close to a competitive information that they wouldn't want to reveal. I'm not saying Rob's wrong. I hope he's wrong. I think this question would reveal a lot about where we see revenue going in 2022. That's why I thought it was an important question. And then the institutional investors have questions as well. Let me see if I can make this bigger. Institutional investors, they're not disclosed who they are. The top ones don't show how many votes there were or how many shares they represent. Proponents of alternative grid storage. This is about intra-seasonal grid storage. So you produce more solar electricity in the summer than you do in the winter. And this is a question about whether an 4680 cells or something else could help shift electricity. If electricity is produced in the summer, you need electricity in the winter, and you create some kind of intra-seasonal storage. So towards the end of summer, you store up a lot of electricity, and then you use that out over time in the winter. They talked about vampire drain, that if you keep batteries fully charged, they lose some of the charge to nothingness. And they asked, is this limitation even relevant for changing the energy equation? I don't think this is a particularly relevant question. I think in the long run, if you go to all solar and all wind, this is going to matter more. But for the foreseeable future, there's still going to be a lot of fossil fuel energy generated. There's still going to be energy generated by dams. And, there's other sources of energy that come into play. So I don't think it matters a whole lot. But it will be interesting to see if that answer is different than what I expect. So the second institutional investor asks, you've suggested between a 5 and 10x improvement is achievable in automotive production versus the first Model 3. Where does Berlin sit relative to that limit? So the idea here is when they made the first Model 3, they had a certain level of production efficiency. And Elon has talked about sort of the ideal factory where you use the volume of the factory more efficiently and you produce vehicles at a higher velocity. And it's pretty clear that Elon has said before, going from the original Model 3 did not have any castings. The current Model Y in Fremont, and I think in Shanghai, are using single-piece castings for the rear of the vehicle, and this eliminates 300 robots and makes manufacturing more efficient and faster. Berlin is going to go to front and rear castings and structural pack. So that, in theory, should make the production more efficient. So this is kind of a good question. How far along the road are they towards this hyper-efficient factory? And Elon was pretty clear in his interview with Sandy Munro that they're going to get further along towards a more efficient factory after Berlin and Texas, that there's a future factory coming, future factory improvements coming. The third institutional investor question, there are more, but I stopped after the first 4 retail and the first 3 institutional investors because I didn't like the remaining questions. This one, I don't really love this question because I think they've asked this of Elon before and he doesn't really answer it clearly. The question is, in the master plan part 2, Elon had talked about a minibus. And they wanted to know if there was any updates on the minibus. Now, he's been asked about vans and asked about minibus before, and he always says we don't have any new announcements at this time. I don't think there's any reason to expect an announcement on minibus yet. If they're going to announce it, they're not going to announce it in an investor call. They're going to announce it at an announcement. They're going to have a reveal. It's pretty clear that the robotaxi, the Compact 2023, the 2023 Compact is higher up on the list of things to reveal. So I think minibus, and my gut is if the 2023 Compact is a 2023 vehicle, then the minibus is a late 2023, early 2024 vehicle. I think it's going to be built on the Cybertruck platform, as in the same length and width and rough layout, and probably a lot of shared parts. And if that's the case, then they got to get Cybertruck up and running and producing and making sure they're getting that done right. So I think we're going to see Cybertruck production end of this year, early next year. And once they get Cybertruck production ramped, I think that's when we might see an announcement of the minibus. That's my take on that. So, all right. So we're moving on to SpaceX, and this will be fairly quick. There's not a lot of SpaceX news this week, but we have the launch and docking of Crew Dragon. Second time, I think it's the third successful launch of Crew Dragon to the International Space Station. Maybe the first one was a test launch, but and there are two Crew Dragons currently docked. So this was yet another successful mission. Tesla or SpaceX launching humans into space, reaching the International Space Station, delivering humans. Great stuff. Great learning experience for SpaceX going towards the future. They're using all of that they learned from this for what's coming with Starship. So that's really good news. And then the other thing really quick, which I'm going to show this. This is the Starbase production diagram that was done by, I'm going to make this large so you guys can see it. You can't see me. I know that's horrible. So this is by Brendan Lewis, and it shows SN15 on the far left, SN16 next to it, SN17. It shows the different starships and what state of production they're in. And you can see that they've made progress on SN15, which is about to launch hopefully this week. Static fire in the next couple days, and a launch hopefully this coming week. SN16 is almost fully built. SN17's made good progress. SN18's made good progress. Doesn't look like a lot of progress on SN19. I wouldn't be surprised if there is no SN19. And then SN20, so SN15 is supposed to be a new generation Starship compared to the ones that we've seen test launch before. And SN20 is supposed to be a new generation of Starship after SN15. Radical improvements made in Starship construction. And then to the right, you see BN2 and BN3. These are the beginnings of Super Heavy, the booster that's going to launch Starship to orbit. So we're seeing some progress on that. I believe they're building one that's really just a mock-up that's not ever going to fly. And then maybe BN2 is going to be the first one to fly. So we're going to see how that goes. So, okay. That's Starship. And as I said, I think Starship is going to have a Starship SN15 should have a static fire any day. Could be today, could be tomorrow. And then we should see an SN15 test launch, I think by midweek. But, you know, things get pushed off for various reasons. But I think that's coming fairly soon. So, from there we move on to just news, general news. What do we got for news? Okay, I think the most fun news is Elon Musk is going to host Saturday Night Live on May 8th. If he's apparently planning on being devilish, if you can see the top tweet here, he's planning on being devilish. Right here, there's a little. He put a little devil in his tweet, so that's coming. That's kind of exciting news. Miley Cyrus will be the musical guest. She's pretty entertaining too. I'm surprised he didn't talk Grimes into getting that spot or talk them into putting Grimes on, but that's that. There's been this big hubbub this week with this crash that happened in Texas where a Model S crashed into a tree, and the media made it look like, and there was no, when the police or rescue got to the vehicle, there was no one sitting in the driver's seat, and the car burned up and the men in the car died. 59-year-old man and a 69-year-old man. And the media, there was a media firestorm claiming with no evidence that autopilot was driving and that autopilot crashed in the tree, that this was Tesla's self-driving software that crashed in the tree. And then Consumer Reports did this bogus thing where they had these, quote, experts who tricked the autopilot system to allow them to get the car to run on autopilot with no one in the driver's seat. And they put a weight on the steering wheel, and they played like one or two other tricks to fool autopilot into operating with no one in the driver's seat, which there's no evidence that the guys in Texas did that. So what are you showing here? And I mean, I have a tweet that's going almost viral right now where I said, all right, try this trick with any other car. The Tesla that they tested when they played this game, it didn't crash. It actually drove safely. Try this with any other car. You can't do it because other cars can't drive themselves. So, and I just did a Clubhouse room about this, by the way, that there's this really interesting question about how do you determine how well the full self-driving software is working. So we had this room, and what will happen is you'll talk to somebody who says, well, when I drive my Tesla, it either does great or it doesn't do that well. And you're getting a human's subjective opinion about how well the software works. And I don't think that's how Tesla is measuring their software. I think they have internal measures of how they measure how full self-driving is doing. And that's a really interesting question. How do they measure it? So I think they look at things like flicker. If you check my video, probably a few weeks ago now, I covered Andrej Karpathy's interview on the Robot Brain podcast, where he talked about flicker, where the software identifies an object. Let's say it's a stop sign. And then all of a sudden, 5 frames later, just, a tenth of a second later, it says, wait a minute, that's a yield sign. Then it changes back to stop sign. If there's a flicker, if it's not consistent in identifying objects, that's a bad sign. And they can measure how much flicker do we see. And if we see less flicker, if it's more consistent and accurate in identifying objects, that's a good sign. So that's a measure you would look for, consistency and accuracy in measuring objects. It's also predicting paths. I actually have a tweet here that sort of talks about this. If you at the bottom of this tweet, the bottom of this here, Elon talks about a new FSD rendering approach that better represents neural network probability vector space. The neural network in the car is predicting where objects are going to move. So one of the things that you would measure is how accurately is it measuring where objects are going to move, and how consistent is it in making those measurements. And I think that's something that they'll be able to measure. And as they advance to new versions of the software, as the software learns from more data, then, because it's machine learning, it's learning from data you throw at it. As they retrain the chip in the car to drive better based on all the learning, we should see more accurate predictions of where objects are going to move. So of the probabilities of where objects will move. And if that is the case, that's really important. So kind of cool that we have this neural network. When people are driving their Teslas in FSD beta, they see this representation on the car where you see in the lower right picture there, you can see little images, little boxes where the cars are. And the one with the white lights in front of it is the Tesla. Apparently, there's going to be some new rendering, some new way of visualizing this that's going to be better. That's coming. So there was some tweet that Elon was responding to here. Somebody was complaining about some sort of problem they were having with their utility. And Elon said, starting next week, so there are people who buy solar panels or solar roof and don't get a power wall. And this is not probably the best decision. Elon thinks anybody who's getting solar panels and solar roofs should also be getting a power wall. So now you can only buy Tesla solar panels and solar roof if you're getting a power wall included, at least one power wall. My solar roof order is including 3 power walls. So it's not going to affect me. But if you were someone who wanted just the panels without the... And I could see why it would make sense if you only had a small amount of panels and it was only mitigating a little bit of your energy demand. You might never have moments where the solar panels are generating electricity that isn't used by the house. But typically what you're going to see is you're going to have really strong sun for a period of time. And there's a period of time in there when you're not using your air conditioning, whatever, you're not using that much electricity. And that power wall absorbs some of the excess solar energy that's produced. It really only makes sense to have solar roof and power wall together. So, and then the last thing is Elon appeared with Peter Diamandis about the X Prize. Peter Diamandis has this whole big X Prize system. And Elon has announced this big prize. It's a $100 million prize for teams to develop carbon capture technology to see if we can find safe ways and efficient ways that scale to remove CO2 from the atmosphere, which, if you're concerned about climate change and global warming, removing CO2 and from the atmosphere will reduce the impact of climate change and global warming. So that's that. I think that's all the news I had. Yeah. Oh, and sorry, Lucid Motors was sued. If you follow my channel, I make a lot of videos about Lucid Motors because back in September they had the reveal and I was really disappointed in the reveal. And I made a video criticizing it. And then all these Lucid fans keep bugging me and picking on me. So every once in a while there's new news about Lucid and I cover more news about Lucid Motors. So they just got sued. They got sued in a class action lawsuit for the reasons I predicted they would get sued in a recent video. And I made a video this week saying, aha, I told you so. Because I'm an I told you so guy. And then I also made a video about the boring the Bering Strait that's getting a lot of views. It seemed that was, I think, a week or so ago. For some reason, that video is pulling a lot of views, so I'm really excited about that. Okay, so now we're going to go into the Patreon Q&A. Before we do that, I just really quick want to mention the T-shirts. Tesla is the next Tesla. This is this live stream is about Tesla. So I think this T-shirt shows the future growth of Tesla stock. We're at a lull right now. I don't think we're going to see a big jump in the short term because no matter what happens with the earnings, Wall Street will spin it the wrong way. The media will spin it the wrong way. I don't predict short-term share prices, but I don't think we're going to see a big jump yet. I think unless there's some really shocking news in the first quarter, I think the jump happens when Berlin starts producing vehicles or when FSD starts to work. If they deliver FSD beta version 9 and it really starts to work well, and even Tesla Lisa says it works great. You know, there's people who are less positive about it, people who are more positive. Omar's always going to say it's great. If you follow Omar Kazi, Omar's catalog, or Omar's blog, he's always saying it's great. Tesla Lisa's always saying it's terrible. When it wins her over, then we know it's good. So I think that's coming. But I want to go back to the questions. So we're in Patreon Q&A. And this one relates to the Tesla quarterly call. Question is zero emission vehicle credits or regulatory credits. This is a common Tesla Q criticism of Tesla's reports and Tesla's earnings. How long do you think Tesla can keep making $300 to $4 million per quarter to fund its operations? So for those who aren't familiar with this, there are regulations in different countries that require car makers to produce zero-emission vehicles. And if they don't produce zero-emission vehicles, they can buy credits from companies that do. Since Tesla doesn't produce any fossil fuel-powered vehicles, they get zero-emission vehicle credits and they can sell them to other car companies. Most notably, Fiat Chrysler has a contract to pay Tesla for zero-emission vehicle credits. And I think it was this mayor in the Hyperchange video, maybe it was Rob Maurer. Rob Maurer, I think a lot of people are predicting that somewhat of a drop in zero-emission vehicle credits. I don't think they're going to drop. I think we're going to see $300 to $400 million a quarter for a while. I think we're going to see increasing government regulation pushing car companies towards regulatory credits. But I think more important, I don't think it matters. The regulatory credits are going to be an increasingly small part of Tesla's business as Tesla's business grows. We're expecting Tesla to produce, if I'm correct about 2022, we skip ahead to 2022, and Tesla produces 100 gigawatt hours of its own battery cells, and it buys 100 gigawatt hours of battery cells from suppliers. So it's 200 gigawatt hours of cells. Now they have 120 billion plus in revenue instead of 30 billion in revenue. That 300 to 400 million on regulatory credits gets smaller and smaller as the business grows and grows. So I just don't think this matters a whole lot. The only reason it would matter is if it grew with Tesla's business. In other words, if Tesla producing more cars allows them to sell more zero-emission vehicle credits and the demand for zero-emission vehicle credits rises, then maybe Tesla makes more money on it. I just don't think it's important. This is a non-Tesla question. I would love for you to give your thoughts on the safety criticism of the boring tunnels. Possible emergency plans if there's a fire inside the narrow tunnel systems, toxic smoke, escape routes, access of fire trucks, extinguishers, etc. How would those concerns be addressed and should be handled by the boring company, in your opinion? I don't think this is a serious concern. And I just want to mention, Patreon. Please, there's a link tree in the description below to click that to get to Patreon support. I think there's a link below that for Patreon directly. And Patreon supporters get early access to some videos, bonus content. They get to submit questions for live streams that get taken before other questions, and more. There's a link tree in the description to that. So, for the boring tunnels, I hear this a lot. A lot of people are very, very concerned that somehow there's going to be this huge problem with the tunnels. And, I'm not aware of this being a problem with any other tunnel system. I don't know why people think this is going to be a problem with boring tunnels. There have been tunnels for over 100 years. I don't know how long. I think the English Channel has had the English Channel tunnel, the Channel, for I don't know how long. I don't remember hearing of this problem being significant in the Channel tunnel. So whatever's been done with tunnels in the past will be done with these tunnels in the future. The tunnels are somewhat narrow, but they're not that narrow. A Cybertruck will fit in them. It won't be that hard to fix a problem if there is a problem. As far as there shouldn't be a lot of toxic smoke because there's no fossil fuel vehicles going through. There shouldn't be crashes. There should be, except under the Bering Strait, if we do this Bering Strait thing, or under rivers, there should probably be ventilation shafts and maybe access tunnels every mile or so, or every couple miles. I don't know how they're going to do that, but they're going to do something like that. And I think that's whatever is normally done with tunnels will be done with boring tunnels. I just don't see that there's a problem here. I don't think there's anything that the boring company needs to do that's special compared to what other tunneling companies have done. So, but I get questions like this all the time. Another Patreon question. I wonder if you could expound a little on positives added and negatives added to an earnings report between these two examples and compare. This comparison was earnings reported $400 million in net profits, only no Bitcoin appreciation or profits. Just to be clear, Bitcoin appreciation is not accounted for in Tesla's reports unless they sell Bitcoin, and Elon has said they're not going to sell Bitcoin. And then anyway, so that option versus earnings reported $400 million of unrealized Bitcoin appreciations, no other profits or gains. So, look, Bitcoin, I don't really know how to answer this question. I don't think Bitcoin makes a huge difference for Tesla's business. They have roughly $1.5 billion or $2.5 billion in Bitcoin. The company is worth like 600 billion, 700, I think it's worth $700 billion. So it's way less than 1% of the company's value. This is not an important number. It's nice. It's an interesting way of managing your cash to have some cash in Bitcoin. There may be some advantages in transferring money from one country to another using Bitcoin rather than other methods. There may be some reasons why they're doing this with Bitcoin. I just don't think this is a significant game changer for the business. I mean, yes, if they sold some Bitcoin at a big profit, it would be a brief blip in positive numbers for the quarter. I personally don't think that's important. I'm much more concerned with how many vehicles they make, how many batteries they make, whether they get FSD working, whether they're able to make money on AutoBidder, how many megapacks do they sell. I think those kinds of questions are a lot more important than games with accounting games or games with money. I would like to see Tesla develop a financing arm like GM has GMAC and Ford has Ford Motor Credit, and that could be an actual genuine support for the business. It doesn't make sense to develop that if you're planning to stop selling cars when FSD starts working and you put all your cars in the robotaxi network, which is my theory. Why haven't they created a financing arm? Because they're going to stop selling cars. That's the theory. Last Patreon question. Considering all the FUD increase since the past weeks, do you believe Tesla should reinstate a public relations department in whatever form that is not only Elon's Twitter or us? So in other words, when there's criticism of Tesla online, when the media plays unfairly, do I think that Tesla should have a PR department to react? I think the answer is Elon stopped having a PR department because it wasn't working. The practical reality is that if there's a negative story about Tesla and Tesla's PR department responds, it just creates a second day of the negative story. It doesn't help. It's not, if you had a fair and unbiased media, having a PR department might help. We don't have a fair and unbiased media. We have an unfair and biased media, and so we're not going to get treated fairly, and a PR department could actually make things worse. So Elon decides he's going to handle it, and he's got an army of nuts like me who attack the media when the media does an unfair story. And that's the way it's going to be. So now we're on to regular Q&A. So I see a question here from Ben Pena. Why are they using drivers in Las Vegas boring tunnels? This is a closed system. Why no FSD? Ben, they are working their way up to FSD. They're going to have regular drivers first. I think what's happening is the vehicles are actually driving, and the person in the driver's seat is supervising the driving, and ultimately at some point they're just going to let the vehicles drive. Let's see. Did I miss? I didn't miss any super chats. When is Elon's SNL? Elon's SNL appearance is May 8th. May 8th, 11:30 p.m. East Coast time. Let's see. Are you fair on Lucid Motors? I think I'm fair on Lucid Motors. I don't know why people think I'm not fair on Lucid Motors. I'm critical of Lucid Motors, but hey, I predicted that they wouldn't deliver cars in the spring, and they came out and said they weren't going to deliver cars in the spring. I predicted they would get sued in a class action lawsuit for lying about what they were doing with deliveries, and they got sued. So far, I've been right. If I'm unfair, at least I'm right. Brandon Fouts, bigger roof, just more income from utility. No, the bigger roof is. I may be able to increase the amount of solar on the roof. That's something we're going to see. Manuel asks, what do I think Tesla's stock price will get to this week? I don't make short-term stock price predictions. I think the stock price will fluctuate. That's the only prediction I can make about the short term. Stock price is not determined by long-term investors. It is determined by short-term traders. I do think long-term investors tend to have more influence right after a news event, and the quarter one call is a news event. So if that's the case and long-term investors see the long-term value, that might push the stock up. But ultimately, there's all this short-term trading going on that drowns out the long-term investors, and you need really big positive news to overcome that. Warren, can and should Tesla shareholders support group go after CNBC and Consumer Reports in legal form? No. I don't think that's something we need to do. What do I think? Okay, I answered that. When will boring tunnels expand to every major city? 5, 10, 20 years. So I think what's going to happen is there's going to be an initial burst of activity in the next 5 years where we're going to see Las Vegas, we're going to see Austin, Texas, we're going to see Miami and Fort Lauderdale, and maybe Orlando and Tampa. We're going to see 4 or 5 cities, maybe 10 cities in the next few years. And then at some point, I think Boring Company is going to do a capital raise funding round or 2 funding rounds, and they're going to raise money to build the machine that builds the tunnel boring machine. And, having demonstrated viable projects in multiple cities, they're going to go out and get either recruit other cities to say, hey, do you want us to build one of these for you? Or other cities are going to come to them. And that's when it really starts to take off. So, yeah, in 20 years, I don't think it's going to be 10 years. I think it's going to take at least 10 years, maybe 20, probably going to take about 20 years before we start seeing them in most major cities. And I mean most major cities globally. Jason asks, is it about my response to Lucid Motors? Is it common for new companies to get sued? I don't think so. I don't think it's common for the CEO of the company to lie about what they're going to do right before the SPAC merger is announced, and then admit the lie right as the SPAC merger is being announced. 6 days between when he lied about what they were going to deliver and when he admitted what they were going to deliver. That's why they're getting sued. That's what it says in the lawsuit. Marty asks, when will Tesla start making Semi out of China? Tesla Semi? I think they're going to start making Tesla Semi in 2022 in China. I think that the new piece of land that they're developing for a factory will be for Tesla Semi. The market for Semi in China is 4 times the size of the market for Semi in North America, in the United States and Canada. Damien asks, Warren, do you think Consumer Reports should try to hack Cadillac's active driver safety systems by wearing sunglasses, etc.? Or would you do it, Warren, and do a viral video? I'm not going to do that. I think the practical reality is you can't hack their active safety systems. Other people have hacked the systems by putting up like a face with eyes on it. Or you could put a mannequin with eyes looking forward. Other people have hacked these systems before. No, the comedy thing is if you actually ran one of these things without a human in it, they would crash. They would crash. They're not capable of doing it. Only Teslas are the only ones capable of doing it. Can I do a video on the small cars coming out of China, Ben asks. Ben, I'm not sure what you're referring to. I'm not particularly interested in small cars in China. I'm much more interested in what Tesla's doing, in the manufacturing improvements that Tesla's making, and in the FSD changes that Tesla's developing. I think that's a lot more important than whether somebody can make a small car that no one wants to ride in. David Todd says, have you heard anything about Palantir getting a contractual agreement with Tesla? No. I don't think there's any reason. First of all, I don't know why people are obsessed with Palantir. Palantir, I think, is run by Peter Thiel, who is also part of the PayPal mafia that Elon was with. Elon has talked about how they do a lot of in-house software, and the software that Tesla is doing in-house is probably better than the software that Palantir is making for customers. So I don't think that's a significant issue. How would FSD work? Where'd that go? I got to skip down here. Let's see. Warren, where do you source the full cost per mile consumers pay for their ICE vehicle? Tony, that Tasha Keeney came up with 70 cents a mile. I came up with 60 cents a mile. The IRS, I think, is around 55 cents a mile. I haven't done my own calculation of what's the cost per mile. The thing you have to recognize with the ICE vehicle versus the electric vehicle is the ICE vehicle lasts on average for 150,000 miles. Whatever the vehicle costs, you have to amortize it over 150,000 miles. Where with a Tesla EV that's likely to be a million-mile vehicle, you amortize the cost over a million miles. So if you have a Toyota Camry that costs $25,000, amortize it over 150,000 miles, you get one number. With a Model Y costs $50,000 and you amortize it over a million miles, it ends up costing a lot less per mile. So let's say the Toyota gets 250,000 miles, even though it only gets 150,000 miles. That would be 10 cents a mile for amortizing the vehicle. $25,000 over 250,000 miles. Where the Model Y would be $50,000 over a million miles would be 5 cents a mile. So the Model Y costs half as much on a per mile basis. And I think I'm being unreasonably unfair to Tesla and unreasonably fair to Toyota in that comparison. Because the Camry is probably $30,000 and the Model 3 that's really a closer competitor is probably closer to $35,000. So it's really like a third or less of the cost per mile. Bob asks, what is holding up the approval in Giga Berlin? I think that's a question that will be asked at the Q3, that may come up in the Q1 call. I don't know the answer. My channel asks, when AI Day is announced, will it also include Dojo running the Gigafactory production of Tesla vehicles? I don't think Dojo is going to be involved in factory production in the short run. I don't think that's an issue. Does your Starlink revenue model take into account total bandwidth per satellite? It is rumored to be 20 gigabits per second for early versions of the satellites, but it could be 80 to 100 gigabits per second soon. Joe, the answer to your question is yes. I did take into account satellite bandwidth when I did my Starlink revenue model, and I do think that the bandwidth is going to increase. I did a video where I think it was RDOF or something. I did this video where these guys were talking about why they shouldn't use Starlink for the Rural Development Opportunity Fund. And that video helped me understand Starlink and his revenue model better. And the revenue model is better than I thought. That taught me the revenue model is better than I had been thinking. Andrew says the battery will last that long, but the car itself will be undesirable to drive and look at after about 300,000 miles. Andrew, there's a Tesla Model S that's gone over 600,000 miles, and it's still desirable to drive and look at. So I don't know where you're getting that from. Aside from Robotaxi, what other spin-off companies could you see happening? Would be awesome to get free shares of new Elon companies. So I think that if Tesla grows really big, really fast, and governments start making noises about antitrust and splitting the company up, I could see Tesla spinning off. Tesla Europe is one company. Tesla China is another company. Tesla North America is a third company. Tesla India is another company. So regional splits. I could see Tesla Energy being split off as a separate company. I could see Robotaxi being split off as a separate company. I could see Dojo as a service being split off as a separate company. I think there's a lot of ways they could spin things off if it was appropriate. Battery production could be spun off as a separate company. There's a lot of possibilities there. Warren, why does mainstream media absolutely hate Elon so much? What are we missing? I think negative stories get headlines, and Elon Musk and Tesla get negative story headlines get clicks, and Elon Musk and Tesla in a headline get clicks. So the benign version is they're just chasing clicks, and a negative story about Elon gets more clicks than other stories. I don't know. I can't believe Monkey Mind Pong didn't get more press. You would think a positive story with a monkey would get press, and that didn't get more press. In the future, do I think Tesla will upgrade the Fremont factory to the same standards of Austin, allow it to remain at current efficiency, or even sell it because of California government taxes bureaucracy? So that's a really good question. They certainly are upgrading the Model S and Model X lines, which is an indication they're staying in Fremont. I think what I see happening is they will continue producing in Fremont as much as they can until Austin is up and running and ramped. And once Austin reaches a certain level of ramp, I think they revamp the Fremont production lines to go to two-piece, single-piece casting front and rear and structural battery pack. There's this problem that I don't know how they're going to deal with, which is what do they do with the 1865 cells that Panasonic's producing in Nevada if the vehicles start using 4680 cells? And I think the answer is they go in Powerwall and Megapack. That's my best guess about what they're doing. But if you have a running factory that's working, it probably doesn't make sense to shut it down. It may be that when the 2023 compact comes along and produces in really high volumes, that may be time to shut Fremont down. We'll see. They should have the band Tesla performing for Saturday Night Live when Elon's running on the show. Sure. SpaceX is annihilating the competition. Will Tesla do the same? Yes. I think that a lot of the major car companies are going to go bankrupt. I think some companies out of China will survive. I think Hyundai might survive. I think BYD is probably going to survive. I think NIO, even though I pick on NIO a little bit because I don't like their battery swap model, I think NIO is probably doing okay. It's hard to know what's going on inside these companies, whether they're losing money or making money. Do you think the roads will eventually be restructured to be compatible for autonomy? China is already doing this to make autonomy safer. I think by the time you restructure the roads to make them compatible for autonomy, the cars will already drive so well with the roads the way they are that it won't make any sense to bother doing it. Detra asks, will Elon make robots? I definitely think there's a chance that Tesla will start making robots. I think there's a chance that Tesla acquires Boston Dynamics. I think the application of FSD, of the vision system with FSD, really, really fits with robots. Musk asks, is there a Tesla e-bike? No, Elon doesn't like two-wheel vehicles. Could they sell the other 1865s to other vehicle makers? They're not going to want to do that. Can Tesla Semi as a service be bigger than Robotaxi? Yes, I think that is one of the things that Jerome Guillen is going to look at in the Tesla heavy trucking, is whether Tesla can provide trucking services rather than just sell trucks to companies. But I think it's a while before they do that. When Elon talks about 50% growth, what does he mean by that? Does he talk about share price or X cars produced? I think when Elon talks about 50% or materially more than 50% growth, I think he's primarily talking about batteries and the products that are carried by those batteries, and probably he's talking about revenue. I don't think he's talking about share price because he can't control share price. Don't ask the same question over and over again. It's not fair to other users. Is it a better investment strategy to put money towards Tesla stock or towards Teslas to put on the Robotaxi network? I am not a professional investment advisor. I'm not the person to ask for investment advice. Me personally, I'm buying Teslas because I want them. I have a Cybertruck on order. I'm hoping to buy a Model Y, not because I am planning to put them in the Robotaxi network, but I'm not planning on buying a lot of them and putting them all in the Robotaxi network, and I hold Tesla stock. Hey, Bingo, thank you for your support. In the UK, no Model Y and Model 3 costs 50% more. If prices equalize after Berlin opens, demand will rocket here, and I already see lots. Keep up the good work, Warren. Thank you, K Bingo. Will Elon get fat and shave his head like Marlon Brando in Apocalypse Now? Maybe they'll do that in the Saturday Night Live. Why are they delaying sharing the supercharger network? I don't think they're delaying anything with sharing the supercharger network. I think the practical problem is there aren't enough other electric vehicles to use the supercharger network to be worth retrofitting the supercharger network to take those vehicles in. I think when they get the supercharger network to the point where there's more superchargers than needed for Teslas, they'll let other vehicles on. And I think they will, at least as a demonstration, let other vehicles use the supercharger network in a few places just to see whether there's any demand. Will Lucid Motors succeed after they deliver cars in the beginning of July? If Lucid Motors, Jason Pike, come back to me. If Lucid Motors delivers cars in the beginning of July, come back to me. I will admit I was wrong. If they deliver cars in the beginning of July, I will admit I was wrong. They're not delivering cars in the middle of in July. They're not delivering cars in August. They're not delivering cars in September. I don't think they're delivering cars this year. Metric Zeppelin says, I thought Hyundai bought BD last year. You mean Boston Dynamics? I don't know the answer to that. You might be right. Would you lean more into Lucid? Why are all these Lucid people watching? Would you lean more into Lucid if Apple chooses them for the car manufacturer for the Apple car? There's not going to be an Apple car. Apple can't. I was using my phone this morning. I have an iPhone. I was using my phone this morning. I said a friend of mine named Mike sent me a message about Elon going on SNL, and I used my fingers to type thanks Mike, and it read it as thanks Mile. Like I'm replying to a message from Mike and I said thanks, and Ellen's next to K. If their AI is so good, why didn't I know I was saying Mike? Come on. And then I asked Siri a question this morning and it didn't work. No, Apple's not making a car. They're not making a car. It's dumb. What kind of car will the Shanghai Phase 3 produce? I think that's a semi factory. That's my opinion. I think that's going to be producing semi. I don't know. Could be a small hatchback, but I think it's going to be Tesla semi. Did you see the Domino pizza delivery robot? I did not. Let's see. Is it right to say that we see real growth in the stock price by the end of 2022 and beyond because of massive growth? So this is a good question, CM. So I think so. I think that we should see real growth in the stock price by the end of 2021, because by the end of 2021, we should see Berlin and Austin producing vehicles and real 4680 cell production going on. And the path to the future growth is going to be a lot more obvious. And I think it's also like if they deliver, like I'm predicting 900,000, 930,000 vehicles for 2021. If they deliver 1 million vehicles in 2021, that's 2 consecutive years of 100% growth. That's a pretty good sign. It's at some point it gets hard for the long-term investors who aren't buying Tesla yet to say, you know, we're crazy for not buying the stock. So, you know, if at the end of 2021 they have $60 billion in revenue, which is 100% growth, and FSD is where, you know, it just depends on what we see in 2021. I think we could see really substantial growth in the stock price this year if that happens. So what's my price target in summer of 2021 and end of year 21? I don't do price targets. Even when I do my models, I don't really consider them price targets. I say what I think the stock is going to be worth, not what I think the Wall Street short-term traders will value it at. It's so hard to predict the stock price when the people controlling the stock price are short-term traders who are looking at something other than what I'm looking at. I do think that, and I don't, summer 2021 is too soon to have any sense of it. I think the end of the year 2021, we should see substantial progress in production of vehicles, production of batteries. FSD should be out probably to all people who paid for it by the end of 2021. Dojo should be running. If all those things fall into place, you know, if there's greater solar roof deployments and greater megapack deployments, if we see a lot of good news, then I think we're going to see a significant increase in the share price in 2021. You know, if you ask me, I think the share price right now should be $5,000 a share. But Wall Street doesn't react to my valuation, right? So, will Elon be the number one new automaker, the new number one automaker? Tesla will be the number one automaker probably by 2025 or 2026. I mean, I think what's going to happen is, and this relates to an earlier question, as Tesla grows, it's taking market share from other car companies. As those other car companies lose market share, their business models falter and they go bankrupt. So I think we're going to see Ford, General Motors, Volkswagen, Toyota, BMW, Daimler. I think we're going to see all the legacy car makers go bankrupt at some point in the next 5 years, because they're just going to lose so much market share. Now, when one of them goes bankrupt, it gives the other ones a little bit of a lifeline. But I just think they're so heavily in debt and their models are so dependent on selling shitty cars that no one wants, they're going to be in trouble. Any predictions on Tesla home HVAC? I think Elon's frustrated with solar roof, and I could see Tesla saying, you know what, we're just going to start building houses. I think that there's an argument that Tesla should just start building houses, because trying to do retrofit roofs on existing homes is too much of a hassle to get contractors to install the roofs. And trying to put solar roof on new homes that are built by builders, those builders expect a heavy markup, and it's really hard to persuade the buyer to buy a solar roof when you add in not only the cost of, because the builder gets a really low cost for the roof that they put on. And then the Tesla roof costs a lot more than the builder's paying for it, and then the builder wants a markup. So I think it's really hard to get in on existing home sales. On existing homes, it's hard to get on new home sales. The only way Tesla really makes ground in solar roof and solar panels is if Tesla starts building homes themselves. And home HVAC would go with that. And the fact that they're building factories and they're learning about building buildings I think it makes sense. I think they, maybe Tesla starts building apartments. I'm actually talking with a friend of mine in Miami about doing a startup, probably somewhere between Canaveral and Orlando, where we start building apartment buildings from scratch, build apartment buildings really cheap, with a specific design that minimizes the cost and makes them comfortable, and then provide like Tesla minibus service or Tesla robotaxi service to the University of Central Florida campus, to Canaveral, whatever, something along those lines. Are there companies that will be able to compete with Tesla in terms of carbon credits? Well, yeah, NIO produced their 100,000th car. BYD is producing electric vehicles. I think BYD produces a lot of gas-powered vehicles, so I don't think that really works, but did I see Sandy Monroe trying to use the Volkswagen Chargers? I think you're talking about they're not called Volkswagen, they have another brand name. That terrible charger system is going to hurt the industry. They have to make an appointment. I did see it. I don't think it's going to hurt the industry. I think it's going to hurt anybody who doesn't have a Tesla. It's not going to hurt Tesla. Will we still be able to buy Tesla cars in 2025 or 26 because of robo-taxis? I don't think so. I mean, I think you'll be able to buy a Tesla car, but it'll cost $300,000. $200,000, $300,000? Not going to make sense. Jim Whitehead, thank you for the question. Have I looked at Allset Homes in Texas? Yes, I was in touch with Allset Homes. I don't want to say more than I've been in touch with them. I personally, based on my sense of things, I don't think it's going anywhere. I haven't seen any indication that they're actually building homes. It's an idea. It's a good idea. I hope they succeed, but I haven't seen any indication. Maybe they are moving forward. The idea is that this Allset company is going to build homes with, solar roofs and power walls and incorporate other Tesla technology in the homes. I haven't seen any indication they're actually moving forward. This is the same thing people ask me about, hey, did you see this 3D printed house in Long Island? Like, really? Okay, did they build a second one? Until you do it to scale, it's not real. So, when do I think the first 25K Tesla will be revealed? I think that the compact robo-taxi will be revealed in 2022. It's possible they'll do a reveal in 2021, but I don't think so. I think the 2023 Tesla compact is not just a vehicle. It's not a single vehicle. I think it is a platform and it is a factory. It is the factory and the vehicle are being built with each other in mind. And the vehicle isn't just one vehicle. There will be 3 factories at least, one in Shanghai, one in Austin, Texas, and one somewhere in Europe. Not in Berlin if Germany keeps screwing Tesla over. And those factories will be producing in very high volume, very high velocity of manufacture, the whole frame cast in a single piece, maybe the whole vehicle cast in a single piece, the whole body cast in a single piece. And I think we're going to see 48-volt wiring and other innovations. Like my idea, no physical windows. They put LCD screens inside. If you want to look outside, you hit a button. Make it more efficient production, make it more aerodynamic. No doors on the sides, rear doors. These are just like ideas off the top of my head. I'm not saying they'll happen. But you can imagine if you put a door in the rear and there were no doors on the sides, then the car would be more aerodynamic. It would be easier to manufacture with one door in the rear instead of 4 doors on the sides. Does that work? I don't know. Do I think the infrastructure is in place for the extra demand for electricity? Yes. I think the infrastructure is fine. I don't think that's a problem. Will there ever be a sun tax? Probably. Whatever government can tax, they will tax. Do you think Uber and Lyft will be out of business when robotaxi is available? Oh, so David Todd, just to be clear when I answer this question, not only do I think Uber and Lyft will be out of business when robotaxi is available, I bought 2-year puts on Uber and Lyft because I think once robotaxi starts delivering, once they start operating anywhere, it destroys the profit story for Uber and Lyft, and they will both go under. Their profit story is we're losing money now, but as we grow, we will get to profitability. And the problem is that robotaxi destroys the growth story. So then you're just losing money and not growing, or you're losing money and shrinking, and now you're worth nothing. Is Elon on Saturday Night Live and made good for the stock? Yes, it's a short-term bump, probably. I would have thought that the launch to the space station would be a bump. I think Starship sticking a landing and not blowing up would be a bump to the stock, but These are all small, short-term things. They don't really matter. When Tesla stops selling cars, will they make batteries for niche car makers? No. First of all, there's plenty of other battery makers out there. The batteries they make will go in the robo-taxis. What would happen to Tesla stock if the Earth got hit by a massive solar flare? That's kind of a big question there, Frank. I don't think I'm ready to answer that one. So Corey asks, if Tesla was to acquire Boston Dynamics, how soon do you see them making a move on this? How soon do they need the robotics tech? So somebody just said that Hyundai acquired Boston Dynamics, so that Tesla's not going to acquire them. But if Tesla were to move into robotics in some way, I mean, in a sense, the cars are already robots. They already have robots in the factories. I could see Tesla doing robots in 5 years. I maybe less. Somebody asked about Xpeng. I don't know enough about Xpeng to comment. What do I think are the shortcomings of the $25,000 Tesla? Tesla has to justify a higher price for Model 3, Model Y to still sell them. I think that the $25,000 Tesla will be robotaxi focused. I think it will be smaller. I think it will be. I think it's not going to be a performance vehicle. I think it's going to be designed to be hyper efficient. It's going to have low rolling resistance tires. It's probably going to have 13. My gut, if I was building it, I'm not building it. I would build it with 13 or 14-inch wheels and high mileage tires. Like my car has 80,000 mile tires. So if I'm Elon Musk, and we all know I'm not, I would build the cars with as inexpensive wheels as possible, 13 or 14-inch wheels, which are probably going to be more efficient, probably going to ride better, provide a more comfortable ride. The 18-inch wheels, the 20-inch wheels, they actually make for a more uncomfortable ride. You can make up with it with the suspension, but it's going to be easier to have a nice ride with, let's say, 14 or 15-inch wheels than 18-inch wheels. Inexpensive, high mileage tires, so the cost per mile of the tires goes down if you do that. And so if you want a performance drive, then a Model 3 is going to have a much nicer performance drive than a robotaxi. I also think the robotaxi might not have as much range. It's going to have lithium iron phosphate cells. It's going to be designed to be very efficient, but I think maybe that'll have, 300-mile range maximum, or right around 300 miles of range, and maybe as little as 200 miles of range, where Model 3 and Model Y are going to push out to 400 plus miles of range. Did you get your updated price for your roof net yet? No, I did not get an updated price for my roof. Is there another super chat? Did I miss another super chat? I missed a super chat. I'm sorry if I missed a super chat. Do you recommend buying Tesla? To be honest, I recommend buying the cars. I recommend buying the stock, but I'm not a professional investment advisor, so it's just I own a lot of the stock, so obviously I think it's a good purchase. Isaac asks, what's your relation with the Vasa law firm in Sweden? So for those who don't know, I'll say this now. Thanks to the Vasa law firm in Sweden. The Vasa law firm is a Patreon supporter. And I have it on, it's part of the deal. They're supporting me on Patreon, and I like to promote Patreon. I like to promote my Patreon account. People who support me on Patreon, help this channel grow, and they get early access to some videos, bonus content. They get to submit questions for live streams and more. In the future, I'm planning to give credit to more Patreon supporters. You'll see this with other channels. They give credit to Patreon supporters at the end of the slate. And I happen to mention Vasa Law Firm in Sweden because they're my biggest Patreon supporter. When I talk about Patreon, I mention them. So, what do you think about nano dimensions? I don't know anything about nano dimensions. Are there any other companies besides Boston Dynamics that would make sense for Tesla to buy? I don't know enough about that. Well, Elon announced Terafactories, the next generation of Gigafactories. Terafactories are for batteries. I think that Terafactory is actually a long-term thing, that you start with a factory that produces a production capacity of 200 gigawatt hours, and over time you expand that factory to reach a terawatt hour, which is 1,000 megawatt hour, 1,000 gigawatt hours. Do I think Tesla will commercialize their charging network to other vehicle makers? They will commercialize their network to other vehicle makes, I think. Hypercube asks, what are my thoughts on the Cyberlander? The Cyberlander is a contraption that goes in the back of a Cybertruck that you can open up to make like basically a camper set up in the back of the Cybertruck. I have a lot of friends who love it. My friend Brian Smith absolutely loves the concept. I don't think there's room for storing anything in the bed of the Cybertruck if you do it. I think trailering something makes a lot more sense than that. It looks cool. Not for me. Do I think Tesla will commercialize their charging? No, I already answered that. Will SpaceX help construct the Artemis International Space Station through Starship program? I don't know what that means. I think I could see SpaceX just building its own space station. I think it would be such low cost. If they wanted to, they could just build their own space station. When do you expect to get your Cybertruck, and when did you put in your order? So I put in my order in the first hour of the Cybertruck reveal, so I expect to get my Cybertruck end of this year or early next year. I did put in a second Cybertruck order several months later that I would expect to get in 2023 or 2024. I don't know if I'm actually going to follow through on the second Cybertruck. That's the one I would put in the Robotaxi network full time. Robotaxi, what happens when people who do damage to the car, how can the owner hold the people accountable? So this is a common question that we get a lot, and I think I probably need to make a video about this, common questions about robotaxis. So look, really simple. The car has cameras, right? So if somebody vandalizes the car from the outside, it's caught on camera. And there's other Teslas around that are going to catch it on camera too. If you vandalize a Tesla, we've already seen people vandalizing Teslas and get caught. That's not a good strategy. So if somebody's inside the car, and let's say they vomit in the car, the next person to ride in the robotaxi notices the vomit and reports it. And they reject the ride. And the robotaxi knows who was in the car before. And, you know, you could set up the app so that you take a picture of the car as you're getting in and you take a picture of the car as you're getting out to show that there was nothing wrong with the car when you got in, you got out. And it's built into the app so the app gets the pictures. So it's much easier to identify who damaged the vehicle, who did whatever they did in the car, than what I don't. And for some reason, people think this is really difficult. It's not. Will any catastrophic with SpaceX, astronauts die in explosion, etc., impact Tesla? It probably would be a negative in the short run if there was a catastrophic accident. Let's hope it doesn't happen. I mean, so far things are going well. Let's be positive. What are my thoughts on Idra, which is the company making the GigaPress? Idra not giving any credit for Tesla after co-development of GigaPress. I don't think Idra has been any problem for Tesla. I think they've been providing good products, and I didn't know they needed to give credit to Tesla. It's pretty obvious who they're making them for. Biden wants to start replacing school buses with electric ones. Will Tesla get involved? Could they be used for energy storage in the summer when buses aren't in use? An interesting idea. So first of all, I don't pay much attention to what politicians say they're going to do. He hasn't done anything yet. He's just talked. Same thing with Trump. Talk is cheap. Trump said he was going to get the troops out of Afghanistan. He didn't. Biden says he's going to get the troops out of Afghanistan. Let's see if he does it. I don't care what they say. I care what they do. I think the Tesla minibus would be great for school buses, but it's not out yet. Could they be used for energy storage in the summer when buses aren't in use? They would probably be better used as buses than as energy storage. In other words, you used it as a school bus during the school year, then send it out to do other bus work when school's not in session. There's no reason to stick it there in a parking lot when it has wheels and it has the ability to motor to move. What's a good Indian buffet in the Miami area? I don't go to buffet restaurants anymore, so I don't really have a good answer for that. There's a great Indian restaurant, not a buffet. Well, Arun's Indian Kitchen has a location in Coral Springs and a location in Sunrise. The location in Sunrise is called Taco Masala or something like that, and that's a little bit more, it's not a buffet, but it's a little bit more like a buffet. Maybe they do have a buffet set up, I don't know. Why isn't Tesla in the 3D printing industry? They do 3D printing for themselves. It's not really a business that they want to get into. How's Tesla insurance going, and do you plan on buying Tesla insurance? I don't know enough about Tesla insurance. It'd be interesting to see if they say more about that in the Q1 call. I would certainly get Tesla insurance if it's a better deal than my current insurance, and insurance in Florida is very expensive. So if I can get a deal on insurance, I'll take it. Tesla-Toyota partnership, no. Anyone think Tesla won't blow away Q1 numbers tomorrow? I think that they might not blow away the numbers if they record one-time charges like increased capital expenditure or restructuring charge for Model S and X, additional R&D. The earnings numbers might not be higher, but that You have to look closer at the numbers to see, does this indicate they're growing, they're planning for faster growth? Tony asks Warren, why does Starlink need FCC approval to place satellites in orbit? I think they need FCC approval to place Starlink satellites in orbit because Starlink satellites use bandwidth in North America when they're flying over North America, and they might need similar approval from other regulatory agencies in other countries when they fly over those other countries. I think they might need FAA approval to launch, and they need FCC approval to have Starlink satellites operating over the US. Will another factory start being built this year and where? I don't think so. I think we're going to see, I mean, they're building additional factories on the site. So the Model Y factory is being built now, I think, in Austin. And then I think the Cybertruck factory will be built. And then Model 3 factories will be built. And the Model Y factory is being built in Berlin. And then a Model 3 factory will be built in Berlin. Maybe, and semi-factories will be built. Maybe, I think semi-factories being built in Nevada. So I think it's already been announced effectively. I don't know if it's been announced, but it appears it's happening. I think there'll be a semi-factory in China. Who will supply entertainment inside Robotaxi? You know, this is a popular thing. People think that the screen inside the car matters. I thought it was really funny with the Mercedes EQS. They emphasized all these screens in the cars. If you have a kid and they're in the car, they're looking at their phone. They're not looking at the screen in the car. I don't see that happening until you get to, I think if you get to the Robotaxi, I imagine, where a genuine Robotaxi is designed to be a Robotaxi from the get-go, and it has no windows, and it has an immersive LCD display in front. Maybe it's a curved display, maybe it's 3 panels, whatever, flat panels, and you can play immersive video games while you're riding in the Robotaxi, or you can watch an immersive movie or, you know, immersive film, or you can watch what's going on outside, or you can pretend you're in hyperspace, especially like imagining a Robotaxi in a tunnel. There's nothing to see outside. You watch a movie, you watch something. So I think Tesla will be supplying that entertainment. But, you know, or they'll make deals with others like they already have deals with Netflix and others. And I don't know how they're going to make money from it, but everything I've heard, that's not going to be a big money maker. The big money maker is the self-driving cars and the Robotaxi. Coreglass says the EQS interior is very disappointing. I thought the EQS interior was fine. I didn't have a strong opinion on it. I thought it looked pretty good. Is my prediction higher than ARK? My valuation of Tesla is higher than ARK's, but ARK has better sense of how Wall Street values things than I do. And don't ask the same question over and over again. That is not appropriate behavior. Can any regulatory authority prevent satellites from low orbit due to collision concerns? I think there is some sort of regulatory body, maybe the FAA, that regulates that. I'm not sure. Do I think margins will improve in Q1 compared to Q4? Yes and no. I think margins were higher on S and X, but margins in Q4 were higher than Q3. And I think as China's production expands, I think China production vehicles have higher margins. So I do think automotive margins are improving. Will the Cybertruck also be a Robotaxi? Yes. Yes, Cybertruck. I think the Robotaxi world is this scenario where you have passenger Robotaxis. You have single passenger Robotaxis that are designed for just people who are going from point A to point B. You have Robotaxis that are designed for bigger trips, like, you know, 4 people going to an airport and all their luggage. So the Model Y might be good for that, or the Model X might be good for that. You have Robotaxis that are designed for transporting stuff, right? The Home Depot run. So Cybertruck is particularly good for the Home Depot run. Cybertruck is going to be particularly good for towing. Model Y will probably be good for towing, so we'll see. I think something like that will happen. Hello, Peter Gregg from Miami. We should meet in Coral Springs sometime, or Sunrise. How can Elon Tesla surprise us again? I think that a lot of people will be surprised if Dojo comes out as Dojo as a service. Ayaz asks, why does Lucid make you so nervous? Lucid does not make me nervous. I was very excited about Lucid Motors until the September reveal. When the lead up to the September reveal, I was very excited. I was looking forward to a new car company making new EVs. And it was so awful. The reveal was so awful. Everything that has happened since has been so awful. I'm very, very disappointed in Lucid. Wyborn asks, would you visit the Lucid factory if you got invited? Yes. And they're not going to invite me. They have not let a journalist inside the factory. They have shown video from inside the factory, but I have not seen one journalist get inside that factory. There's nothing happening in the factory. Not real. There was something real going on in the factory. They'd been inviting journalists in and showing it off. There's nothing happening. Fake. I'm not nervous. I'm upset that they're defrauded investors, and I'm upset that they let people down with promises that they can't deliver. Ayaz says, so Tesla didn't have production delays. Ayaz, I'm going to say this to you. I'm going to say this as nicely as I can. Peter Rawlinson lied to investors in February before the SPAC merger. As late as February 16th, he lied to people about their production and delivery plans. He has been lying to people about what their vehicle will do. They're not going to have a 500-mile range vehicle. He's been lying to people about performance. He's been lying to people about the car. It is a big, elaborate sham. I have said this since September. I still believe it. Everything that's happened has made me more convinced that Lucid Motors is a sham. It is a sham. I'm sorry you got suckered into buying their stock, or I'm sorry you're getting paid by Lucid to troll my comments. If you keep doing it, I will block you. Do I think Tesla will take on Spotify and Apple Music in their cars? Yes. I don't know if Apple Music is necessary. I think that you can just run your iPhone's music on the car. So I don't know how that would work. Do you think Cybertrucks will replace the Model X's for transporting astronauts to the launch pad? No. I think Model X has the right opening for the astronauts to get in the vehicle because the doors open up and there's a much bigger opening for the astronauts to get in. I think Model X is very well designed for that, and Cybertruck is not as well designed for that. What did Elon mean? What do the future hodl? He's just joking. Hodl is a Bitcoin term. Do I think Mercedes is serious about electric vehicles? No. Well, I mean, they're serious to an extent. I don't think they're crazy about it. Jose Garcia, why would he lie? So he could pump the stock up so that the investors, the Saudis and the Michael Klein and all the other investors would make a lot of money selling the stock. It's a pump and dump. That's why they lie. Jason Pike, no, I don't have to. All right, so anybody who's a Lucid troll is getting put in the timeout, and if they keep bugging me, they're going to get banned hidden from my channel. So I'm done with Lucid questions. You can tweet me on Twitter, and we can engage there. Do I think cargo robotaxis will be more profitable than passenger robotaxis? Very interesting question. No, I think passenger robotaxis will be more profitable than cargo robotaxis, but I could be wrong. I think there's a lot of potential for cargo robotaxis. So, how will Elon put a Dogecoin on the moon? You see, Dogecoin is a fictional thing. It's a ethereal object. It's not a physical thing. It's a concept. It's a digital thing. You put it on the moon however you want. Let's get back to questions I actually care about. What will be the impact on sales of Biden's administration credit proposal? I'm not sure what you mean by credit proposal. I don't know if there's actually a clear proposal yet from Biden. I think we're all still waiting to see what they're actually proposing, and I haven't seen it yet. So let's see what they propose. So far, they have, so far what we've seen from Biden is a lot of talk and not a lot of substance. We have substantive bills in Congress. I made a video about the Green Act. You can check my channel and check that video about the Green Act. I've laid out what that would do. If Biden's proposal is close to that, that would be great. In terms of Chris Christie-size objects, how many could you haul in Cybertruck? Many. It depends how high you stack them. How many gigapress is Tesla using now? I believe they are using a 1 gigapress. I think they have 2 gigapresses in Fremont for Model Y, and I think they have 2 gigapresses in Shanghai for Model Y. I don't think they have more yet, but I think they have several on order. Do I trust the government not to break it up when it gets huge? No, I think that the government will break up Tesla when Tesla gets huge, or will try. I think Elon will be smart enough to break up Tesla before government breaks it up. Any thoughts on Giga Berlin politics potentially delaying the plant opening? I think that's a very serious concern. People talk about Tesla killers. The biggest threat to Tesla's success, our success as shareholders, the society's success in having electric vehicles replace fossil fuel vehicles. The biggest threat very clearly is government. We're seeing it in Australia now with EV taxes. I think there's some place in Canada where they're putting EV taxes because they're supposedly losing road tax revenue. Governments are the biggest threat to Tesla's growth and to the benefit of society shifting from fossil fuels to EVs. Do I think that Tesla FSD robotaxis will start with FSD Tesla owners as driver backup to FSD and function as beta testers to FSD and do intervention reports? So no, I don't think robotaxi will start with people in the seats. I think robotaxi will start with robotaxis running. I think that Waymo's experience where they hit a woman because the driver wasn't paying attention is once they get FSD working, then you don't need a safety driver. They just need to get it working. Once it works, once it's better than human, once it's significantly better than human, then you don't need a safety driver. How many shares of Tesla do I own? I own between 50 and 5,000. I think recently I've admitted I own more than 100. It's 85% of my retirement portfolio and a significant share of other accounts that I control. Family accounts that I control. So Giga Berlin politics delaying the plant opening was Joseph's question. So I don't know whether that's a rumor or whether it's real. I think there are definitely things going on in Germany that are affecting, that may be slowing as far as I can tell so far, it is not slowing the factory from opening and producing vehicles. If it comes to that point where it significantly slows production of vehicles, I think it affects where the 2023 compact will be produced. If Germany demonstrates that it's not friendly to Tesla vehicles being produced in Germany, then Tesla's not going to produce vehicles in Germany. You know, they may go ahead with the factory in Berlin. They may say, the heck with it, we're going to build a factory somewhere else and move all the stuff from Berlin to another location, right? If Germany demonstrates that they don't, same thing with what's happening in Fremont, right? California has demonstrated they don't want Tesla in their state. It's stupid, but we've seen a lot of California politicians be very hostile to Tesla. If you demonstrate you don't want us there, we'll leave. So that's why I think there's a chance that Fremont could be moved lock, stock, and barrel to Texas, right? I mean, that would make sense. On the other hand, it makes sense to have Fremont operating because so many customers are in California. It's a very large state. It's larger than Australia by far. So it does make sense to continue producing vehicles in Fremont to deliver vehicles to the west coast of the United States, to Oregon, Washington, and California. Huge, huge market there. Not to mention Vancouver. What other? So Joe asks, the year 2024, what is higher, number of Teslas on the road or number of Starlink customers? I think Teslas. I think it's going to take time to scale Starlink up to 2 million customers, 2 or 3 million. By 2024, you've got 1 million vehicles produced in 2021. You've got 2 million vehicles produced in 2022. You've got 5 million vehicles produced in 2023. You're probably in the ballpark of 10 million Teslas on the road. I don't think you're going to have 10 million Starlinks in 2024. Any new word on Tesla India? Gigafactory coming there, just more car sales stores. I haven't heard anything new on India. I've definitely seen that Tesla is designating certain key employees as for jobs in India, so something's happening, but I don't know what. This is a great question. Will Dojo help drastically improve diagnosis of diseases, and is that another potential line of business? So T-Waffle, great question. I think that Dojo will actually be really important for Neuralink to read the signals coming from the brain, to interpret what those signals mean, to interpret how sending signals back into the brain is effective. And I think that that will relate to curing diseases as well. Do I see it working for non-brain related diseases? I'm not as sure about that. I could see it coming into genomics. If genomics is treating disease, it could come into play with genomics as well. And Hassan asked about my thoughts on genomics. So my joke about genomics is kind of like nuclear fusion. People used to say about nuclear fusion, it's 10 years away, and it always has been, and it will be for another 30 years. I think genomics was 10 years away, and now it's 5 years away. It's actually moved it to 5 years away, but it's going to be 5 years away for another 20 years. So far I haven't seen genomics really demonstrate it. Crazy asks, what is the need to break up Tesla? If government starts pressuring Tesla, that would be why. Antitrust. AI Day expectations. I don't know. Elon says things like that. Will there be an AI Day? If he does an AI Day, it'll be later this year. It'll talk about Dojo. It might talk about other applications that they've already started using AI for that we don't know about. They usually have something in the bag that they're not telling us about, and then they release it then. Maybe they're using Dojo to interpret the signals coming out of a monkey's brain. What is stronger, Tesla's manufacturing skill set or their software skill set? Which will be more important? I don't know. They're really good at both. They're really good at both. That's a tough one. I think, and ultimately, because FSD is software, FSD is more important. But manufacturing to get costs down is also really important. I don't think it's easy to answer that. Dojo for AlphaFold, I don't know about that. I don't know enough about AlphaFold to say. Tony asks, Warren, does the Boring Company share enough information publicly to create a reasonable valuation? I would say no. I don't think they share. I don't think they have to share that information publicly. I wouldn't expect them to share that information publicly. If they have investors, they would share that information with them. Jose Garcia asks, do you think they will roll out with a single motor Cybertruck at $40,000 in 2022? Yes. I think the cost of making Cybertruck is so low, especially the single motor. It's going to have fairly small battery pack, probably lithium iron phosphate battery pack. I think single motor Cybertruck at $40,000 will definitely happen. Fred says, Warren, the COVID vaccine or genomic realizations. You probably aren't aware that I don't think the vaccines are that successful. I'm not that impressed with the COVID vaccines. I'm not saying they're not working, just saying I'm not convinced. What about the new battery status? That is a question I expect to be answered in the Q1 call on Monday. Oh, by the way, I will be doing a live stream after the Q1 call. Do I think Starlink will go public this year? No, I think Starlink will go public in 2 or 3 years. What do I think about Tesla getting the lithium hydroxide production in Texas and their relationship with Piedmont? I don't know anything about the relationship with Piedmont. As far as lithium production, I would look at the Limiting Factor channel. He has some great videos on Tesla producing lithium. Tesla military contracts. I think Cybertruck would be a great military vehicle. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some kind of contract to produce Cybertrucks to replace Humvees or something. Bear case price target for 2030. My bear case for 2030 is $8,000 a share. When do I think they will roll out the $25,000 models? In 2023? Jim Whitehead asked, do you think Boring Company might go public once they succeed in Miami? No. I think Boring Company goes public in 5 to 10 years. I think they will raise funds from venture capitalists in the short run for the next few years to get to the point where they can build the machine that builds a tunnel boring machine. And then when they need... Sorry, let me think about that. I think they're going to raise funds to build more tunnel boring machines and do more projects. I think when they want to build the machine that builds a tunnel boring machine, I think that's pre-IPO. I think the cost of that factory is probably like $1 billion, and I think they can raise that money pre-IPO. And then once they get that built and running, and then they need to expand to hire staff to do Boring Company projects all over the world, I think that's when they IPO. But I'm really not sure about that. It's a great question. Will SpaceX make lasers blasters on their Starship? No. Will Starlink be a global service? Yes, but many countries will not allow it to operate in their countries. I think China and Russia might resist Starlink. Elon is pretty persuasive, so he might persuade them to allow Starlink to work there. We'll see. I think that Starlink will have to make accommodations for the censorship in countries that don't want it, and I think Elon will accommodate them. Any progress in creating a private investment vehicle for SpaceX and/or Neuralink? I have an email list of people who are interested in that topic. I have no current plans to invest in SpaceX or Neuralink. But there's a third company you didn't ask about. Does Tesla have chip shortage problems? It's possible that's the problem with Model S and X. I don't know. Elon says Tesla #1 in months. What surprises? Well, I think if they deliver FSD and it works, that could make Tesla the #1 company. If Berlin and Austin start producing vehicles, that could make Tesla the #1 valuation company. If they start spitting out batteries faster than expected, yeah. Will Elon go down as the most important person in history? More than important than Isaac Newton, Galileo, Thomas Edison. You left out Jesus Christ. I'm not Christian, by the way. Yes, I think Elon will go down as the most important person in history. I suppose you could argue, well, is Hitler the most important person in history or Stalin because they killed the most people? For me, Elon is already the most important person in history. I'm a simple man. How much can we expect the shares to be at on Monday? I'm a simple man. I know I can't predict share prices in the short term. Is Cybertruck getting side mirrors? I think Cybertruck will get side mirrors. I don't think they're going to pull that off to get rid of them. I think that the robo-taxi in 2023 might not have side mirrors. Okay, so Jason Pike, I'm putting you in a timeout. This is not this chat is not about us getting into arguments about whatever. So please learn how to pronounce Nevada. How am I pronouncing Nevada wrong? It's Nevada. I've been to Nevada. Have you been to Nevada? Can a Tesla running FSD be cited for DUI? Great question. So this is one of my theories. I have a video, 10 industries I think Tesla and FSD and Elon will destroy. I think that the criminal defense industry, the prosecution industry, the police industry will all be decimated by FSD. That when robo-taxis take over the roads, they will drive safely. There will be no reason for traffic enforcement. It will eliminate all drunk driving cases. It will eliminate, in the future, I'm not saying right away, but it will dramatically reduce and then eliminate all drunk driving cases. It will dramatically reduce and then eliminate all driving while suspended cases, which is probably the #1 criminal charge, at least in Florida and maybe the United States in general, is driving with a suspended license, driving with a suspended registration, and then a lot of traffic stops lead to drug arrests. Those are going to be gone. Personal injury cases are going to be gone. Huge changes because of FSD and Cybertruck. Do you see Tesla making some sort of autonomous charging infrastructure like Snake Charger or wireless charger for the robotaxi network? Yes. I don't think it's that important. I think you can have an employee work in the supercharger station, plugging them in, and they can do many cars quickly. I don't think that's going to be a challenge. Oh, good question. Alter Ferguson Financial, I think that's Bradford, asks, Warren, why does boring interest you more as an investment than SpaceX or Neuralink? Okay, so to be clear, the Boring Company does not interest me more than SpaceX or Neuralink. SpaceX and Neuralink are the two companies of Elon's that I'm most interested in. People think I'm a Tesla fanboy. I'm an Elon fanboy. I think SpaceX and Neuralink are the most interesting businesses that Elon runs. Neuralink expands our minds, and SpaceX expands us off this rock. Tesla and Boring Company help us get around on this rock better. They don't make us any smarter. They don't improve our mental capacity. They don't cure diseases. They get us around the planet. They're very important for life on the planet. They make life better on the planet. They increase the efficiency of our simulation. And I think Boring Company could play a big role, and Tesla in some ways could play a big role in space and on Mars, for example. But I think so. But then the other question is, why Boring Company for an investment as opposed to Neuralink and SpaceX? So short answer to that is, I think we're too late for SpaceX. SpaceX is already really about $100 billion company. So we're late to the party. SpaceX might grow to be worth $5 trillion, let's say. So it's a 50x gain. That's great. That's a good thing to get in on if you can get in on it. It's very hard to invest in SpaceX. It's almost impossible, or maybe it's impossible to invest in Boring Company or Neuralink right now. But the gain is about 50x. I think the gain in Tesla is 50x from here. So whenever I see investment opportunities for SpaceX, it's very expensive to invest in SpaceX because even if you got in on a venture capital fund that was doing it, there's a 2% management fee, there's a 20% carried interest fee, so you're not getting all 50x. You're paying money along the way, and then you're getting 40x. Where if you buy Tesla stock, you get all 50x. Because I think Tesla's going to go up 50x from where it is now. So by contrast, Boring Company and Neuralink, we're early to the game. I think Boring Company can 100,000x from where it is now. Maybe more than 100,000x. Not saying from what it's currently valued at to what the valuation would be, but from what its operations are now, a 1 mile tunnel in Las Vegas to 100,000 plus miles of tunnels all over the world. So if you could get an onboarding company now, that would be a good investment. Neuralink, similarly, I think Neuralink has huge potential for growth. I made a video where I talked about this. I made a short video on my channel where I talked about these four crazy numbers: robotaxi, Neuralink, etc. Ultimately, Neuralink serves 100 million people paying $10,000 a piece, and they re-up every 3 years. It's a monster, like 10 trillion. It's like $1 trillion a year in revenue, if not more. And then they re-up every 3 years. So you end up being like $3 trillion a year in revenue, maybe more than that. Not to mention, maybe you're selling software for the Neuralink. Who knows? It's incredibly huge. But Neuralink is too early. SpaceX were too late. Neuralink were too early. Neuralink, I don't expect Neuralink to scale for a long time. They have to do human trials, which they haven't even started yet. Once they start human trials, it's going to take a while. When they start scaling and doing larger trials, they're probably going to do them in the same place. They're going to use the same robot or a new robot in the same place. They're going to use the same surgeons. They're going to use the same team. They're going to use the same chips. It's when they're ready to scale and produce 100 neurosurgery robots, and they're going to produce millions of chips. That's when the opportunity is going to be to invest in Neuralink. And I don't think we're going to be able to get in on Neuralink for 5 years or longer. Sorry, that was a long answer to a great question from Bradford. Thank you, Bradford. Warren, is Roadster 2 getting side boob? I don't know what side boob is. Yes, I've been dreaming the last 2.5 years with my Tesla stock more than 12x return. What? That is. Will Cybertruck be a chick magnet? Yes. Read the actor's name. There's an actor who just made a book called Green Lights. I just read his book. He's the rom-com guy. Matthew McConaughey just published a book called Green Lights, and he talks about that in there. That when he was in high school, he would drive around in his pickup truck, and he had all these girls following him around. He would take them out, drive in the mud. And then he got a sports car, and none of the girls wanted to ride in a sports car. So Cybertruck, chick magnet, absolutely. Also great for dogs. Should Tesla stop producing solar and concentrate on storage? No, Tesla doesn't really produce solar. Tesla sells solar. Tesla buys solar cells from China and puts them in products and sells them. Tesla is not producing solar cells as far as I know. Why is Ford attacking Tesla? Because Ford is going to go bankrupt because of Tesla. When Tesla releases the Cybertruck and Cybertruck starts eating into Ford F-150 sales, Ford's dead. That's their profitable vehicle. That's the shot across the bow, and they know they're dead. Who will successfully develop the first competitor to Starship and when? China, Russia, Blue Origin, or a different U.S. private company. Otherwise, it's just a SpaceX monopoly for decades. Well, Rocket Lab is developing something. As far as I can tell, Rocket Lab is the closest to competing with Starship. Not Starship, but competing with SpaceX. I wouldn't be surprised to see a Chinese launch company or a Russian launch company get there. Blue Origin maybe is going to get somewhere. I mean, Blue Origin's planned New Glenn is the closest thing to Starship I've seen in somebody's plans. Still doesn't reuse the second stage. So, but Blue Origin doesn't seem to be making progress. So I don't see that happening. What do I think of Tesla giving you access to all your driver data and or video for crashes and for any other reason you request? I think they should give you access to your data, but I don't really spend a lot of time worrying about it. I don't think it's an important issue. I think they give you access to the videos from your car. I thought you already did have access to that. Jim Anderson, why is Cybertruck so ugly? It's not for you, Jim. It's not for you. You know what? My kid thinks it's ugly too. My daughter does not want me to drive it. When I get my Cybertruck, I'm not supposed to drive her to school in the Cybertruck. She doesn't want to ride in the Cybertruck. She thinks it's ugly. So you're not alone. But I don't think it's ugly. I think it's fantastic. What are the risks Tesla should be prepared for? From Ohad. Great question. I think government is the #1 risk. Other than government, I mean, maybe FSG just isn't going to work, right? I mean, that's not a huge risk. That's an upside risk. It's not a downside risk. Elon dying, Elon disappearing is a risk. It's not a huge risk for Tesla. It's a much bigger risk for Neuralink and Boring Company. I think SpaceX and Tesla are already on sound footing, and if they lose Elon, he's an accelerator, but they're already on the path. He's gotten them with the culture that they're already on the path, and Tesla will dominate with or without Elon. They will dominate more with Elon, but they will dominate with or without him. Oh, great question from Joseph. What year do you think 1,000 people live on Mars? So I think in the 2030s, probably by 2035, I think there will be 1,000 people on Mars. I think by 2035, if not sooner. Warren, any insight into Tesla's work in biotech space? Seems to be undercovered by MSM. I know they did something with CureVac. They did something related to that, but I don't know enough about it. I don't think that's something they're focusing on. Okay, okay, I want to address this now. So Night Trekker asks, will China abuse the robo-taxi system to deny people rides if they have a low social credit score? So I don't know why there's so much China hate. China is not a perfect country. I don't love the Chinese government. I'm not convinced that the Chinese government is any worse than the American government. I don't know why people are so upset about the Chinese government. I live in America. I live in the United States of America. I'm very unhappy with my government. I don't have time to worry about the Chinese government. We have enough problems with our own government that we need to focus on fixing our own government. And our government and our media like to get us fired up about some foreign problem. That China's a problem, that Russia's a problem, that Japan was a problem in the past. The greatest enemy of the American people is in Washington, D.C. Period. That's the greatest enemy of the American people. And anybody who tells you that China is a greater threat to the American people is misleading you and keeping your, so that's like the Wizard of Oz. Don't pay any attention to the man behind the curtain. Washington, D.C. is the man behind the curtain. They are the problem. Worrying about China, worrying about Russia. Russia is a third world kleptocracy with an economy smaller than Texas. Who cares about Russia? China is a big country doing really well. Congratulations. Their government brought hundreds of millions of people out of poverty, and they should be congratulated for that success. Are they perfect? No. Do I love everything they do? No. But they went from a crap country that had all kinds of problems. The leadership of China did smart things and grew their economy and brought millions of people, hundreds of millions of people out of really horrifying poverty to live much better lives. And you're complaining about their government. The reason that China is rising to become the most powerful country in the world, they already are probably the most powerful country in the world economically, is because Washington, D.C. sucks that bad. If we want the United States to be competitive with China, then we need to stop Washington, D.C. from screwing everything up. And that's Republican and Democrats together. So, sorry, I went off there. Stop bashing China. I don't want to hear it. I'm not saying China's perfect. I just don't want to hear it. Lee Fazani, great question. Elon is worried about a population collapse. I think he mentioned that in the X Prize thing. He's worried about a population collapse. Do you think that he will venture into curing aging? I think Neuralink will help with aging. I don't think Elon is doing anything else related to aging. I think genomics might do something with aging. And as far as I know, Elon has said genomics is big, so I could see him going there, but I just think he has too much on his plate, and Neuralink helps with so much of that anyway. Hey, look, Elon's doing his part. He's got like 6 kids. The rest of us got to step up our game and have more kids. I got 2. That's it. That's all I could put out. That's all I could manage. Do you think there might be a new Tesla product like smart glasses to gather data from human workers for Dojo to enable training humanoid robots for some tasks? That is an interesting idea, Romu. I like that idea. Put cameras or smart glasses on human workers to train humanoid robots for some tasks. I love that idea, Romu. That is a fantastic idea. I don't know if it's necessary, but I like it. Miguel asks, are you planning on running a robo-taxi business? I am planning on buying a Cybertruck and a Model Y. Cybertruck end of this year, early next year. Model Y from Texas, hopefully next year. Keeping them as our personal cars, but sending them out on the robo-taxi network whenever possible to make extra money. And I ordered a second Cybertruck, which would probably not come for more than a year later, or maybe even 2 years later. And I would that was with the last day that you could get FSD for $8,000. And so I'm planning on putting that out in the robo-taxi network full time. But I'm not planning on buying like 10 vehicles or whatever. If your investment pays off, will you visit Thailand and spend a few of those tendies in celebration? I don't have any particular plans to visit Thailand. I'm kind of interested in going to Singapore, actually, because of that movie Crazy Rich Asians. I love Thai food, so I'm mildly interested in going to Thailand for the food. We have a great Thai restaurant near us called Sen, S-E-N. So I already get good Thai food, but I'm tempted to go to Thai. If I go to Singapore, I might as well go to Thailand. But I don't know what tendies are. And I don't have a particular reason that I would celebrate in Thailand versus celebrate in Florida. Florida's a pretty good place. What happens to Tesla stock when Elon does not deliver at least level 4 FSD this year? He's been saying he's confident he'll deliver it this year. So I don't believe in levels. I think levels is a misleading concept. Captain Petey, yes, I did mention the Consumer Reports hack. I think that's in the news section. I think I covered that in the news section. So if you go back here to the news, if you look on your video for where news is here, I think I covered it in there. If you want to scroll back and check that out. Sorry, where were we? So I don't believe. So Cyrus asks about Elon not delivering level 4 FSD this year. So I don't believe in levels. I think the level system is stupid. It can either drive better than human or it can't. And I've said this before. My 19-year-old is afraid to drive on an interstate highway. So is my 19-year-old level 5? There are humans who are afraid to drive on interstate highways. There are humans who are afraid to drive in New York City or Boston, in big cities. Are they level 5? We give them driver's licenses. I don't think level 5 is the right thing to measure. Level 4 or 5, whatever. I think the right thing to measure is it better than the average human? I think there's a really interesting question about how do you measure how well FSD is working? How good is it at identifying objects? How good is it at predicting where objects will move? How does it manage probability of collision? Does it minimize probability of collision? And ultimately, how many crashes does it get in? If it gets in fewer crashes than the average human driver, then why wouldn't you let it drive? If you don't let it drive when it gets in fewer crashes than the average human driver, you are choosing to have more people die. Right? Because a Tesla that's driving better than the average human driver is going to have less crashes than the average human driver. You're going to increase average safety. You're going to decrease the average number of crashes by introducing a vehicle that's better than average. I think Elon's aiming for 10 times better than average. So not letting them drive would be avoiding a chance to massively reduce the number of crashes. So I just don't buy the level 4, level 5 stuff. I think it's a nonsense. Doesn't really make sense. Do I anticipate a Tesla subcompact car like a Honda Fit in the future? So I think the 2023 compact is going to be multiple models. So I think it's going to be a single piece I think it's a system rather than a vehicle. I think there may be more than one casting machine producing more than one vehicle size. I think there will be a European hatchback on the size of a Volkswagen Golf. Ultimately, I'd like to see a one-passenger vehicle, but I'm not sure that's ever going to happen. So I think I think a Volkswagen Golf is roughly the size of a Honda Fit. I don't know if they're going to go smaller than that, but maybe. Do you think we'll see Megapack scale and go after big government contracts around the world? I think Megapack will scale massively. I don't think it's about government contracts. It's about all kinds of contracts. I'm doing a video shortly about Tesla, Megapack, and Powerwall, and something called Opticast. I'm actually working on that video now. It's that and a projection for 2026. This is all probably going to take me a while because Q1 is going to throw off my schedule. Have you seen how bad some human drivers are? Exactly. If you come out with an average robotaxi is comparable to an average human driver, and putting it on the road eliminates the 10% of the worst drivers, you've saved a lot of lives. The challenge is, can you set up robotaxi so the first people who get in it, who get out of their cars, who stop driving and ride robotaxi, are the 10% who are the worst drivers? Skyline asks, this question was already asked. Do I think I'll make more money holding Tesla stock than deploying that capital in a robotaxi business? I don't particularly want to run a robotaxi business. It's not, I don't know which one would make more money. I don't care. I think holding Tesla stock will make a lot of money. I mean, I've made the decision. I hold a lot of Tesla stock. I haven't bought a Tesla yet. Somebody's getting banned. How long before a Tesla shell will be done in one cast? Well, that's one theory, is that the 2023 compact will be cast in one piece, and that'll be 2023. Tesla should sponsor a Daytona 500 driven by all robo drivers at high speed to prove FSD. I don't know if that would really prove FSD, but I do think that would be. I wonder if people would watch races with robo drivers. That's an interesting question. Wouldn't it make sense for Tesla to joint partner with Toyota if they give them the software, would add their production cars to a robotaxi fleet? A 20 million robotaxi 20 fleet by 2030 is way too small. So no, it does not make sense to partner with Toyota. Toyota would have to redesign how they make their vehicles to make them consistent with a robotaxi model. Toyota's vehicles are not going to have the lower cost of operation. They're not making electric vehicles in any scale. I don't see how it makes sense to partner with Toyota, and Tesla will be able to produce a much larger robotaxi fleet by 2030. One of my models has Tesla having a 100 million robotaxi fleet in 2030. Not that hard to get there. If they produce 20 million vehicles a year, starting in 2026, by 2030, you got 100 million robotaxis or more. But I think at 100 million, you're starting to push the limit of how many robotaxis we need. That's an interesting question, too. When will BlackBerry QNX and its highest level of security be questioned if it's in the Tesla chips? I don't know anything about that. Better than average is an interesting metric. Wonder how close they get to being better than the best driver. Yeah, so the other question is, average for where, TechAU? Average for the United States, average for the world, average for Africa, average for India, average for Florida versus average for Minnesota. Average is a hard thing to measure too. So better than the best driver, I don't think that's that far away. When Neuralink comes more known, perceive on superpowers that can be invented, worn on head, etc., with your Neuralink to enhance. I don't understand your question. I think a lot of crazy things will happen with Neuralink. Can we program my Tesla to herd my cattle? Probably yes. That probably could be done, but you probably wouldn't use a Tesla for that. Maybe a Cybertruck. How can we get on your fund for SpaceX? I don't have a fund for SpaceX. And what assurance can you give us that you won't screw us with fees just like these online seed investment platforms? I have an email list where I talk to people about investment proposals, and I do think that there is an opportunity to change the venture capital industry to deliver investments with lower fees. I don't necessarily agree with you that the fees are too high for what they're offering in venture capital. I think there is a way of offering some better opportunities at lower cost. But I don't really talk about what I'm doing on my live streams or on my videos. I reserve that for my email list because of federal laws that regulate how you can advertise such things or talk about such things. And I don't have a fund yet. I don't have anything yet. So will Neuralink allow us to communicate telepathically? Elon says it will. I think that's a long ways away. I don't think that's going to happen overnight. I think that's going to take a while. Do I think the net income margin is going to go down due to lack of S and X sales this quarter? No. I think that the rapid increase, and I've covered this in the Tesla section of the talk. If you go to my, go here to the Tesla Q1, go to the Tesla Q1 part of this video, I talked about this, that although I think that S and X are a positive contributor to revenue, you know, they have higher revenue per unit and they have higher margin per unit. I think that the Model Y, the shift from the increase in Model Y is increasing margin, and that's a much bigger increase in volume. So I think we're going to see higher margins rather than lower margins, even without the S and X sales. And I'm predicting roughly the same automotive revenue this quarter as last quarter. So did I talk about the Lucid lawsuit? I talked about it in the news section. But I only talked about it briefly. I have a video talking about the Lucid lawsuit. I think it's my most recent video before this one. Any update on Cyber Cabin? I am waiting. Great question. I'm waiting on. I'm trying to get. So I have a proposal to build a steel building for the building. I have a proposal for the concrete to be poured. I have a proposal for the guy to arrange the ground for the concrete to be poured. I'm waiting for a quote on clearing the land so that the guy can set the land up for the concrete to be poured. And I still need to get a plumber to do the rough, to set up the rough plumbing of the Cyber Cabin. And I'm waiting to talk to, I have a friend who knows more about this stuff, and he's been busy. I'm hoping to meet with him and go over the plans. And I got another friend who's he's having a barn built, and he wants me to meet the guy who's building his barn, and that could completely change the plan. So, question, what do we see first? Tesla as police vehicles or Cybertruck in the military? There are already Teslas as police vehicles. That answers that question. Just Google Tesla police vehicle. There are already police agencies using them. They save a lot of money using Teslas. Police vehicles idle a lot. They sit still a lot. And gasoline-powered vehicles use a lot of gasoline sitting still. And Teslas don't use energy much when they're sitting still. So they're much more efficient. And police vehicles have a very hard duty cycle. And they don't last very long. And Teslas should handle much better that duty cycle. I think military Cybertrucks is probably 5 years away. Because military just adopts these things slowly. Let's see. For your Tesla roof, did you get offered for free poser walls? I don't know what poser walls are. For my Tesla roof, I ordered 3 power walls. Gary, thank you for your support. Can't wait for pro FSD anti-FUD skits on SNL. Send them ideas. It would be interesting to see if they go after the media. They could really do something fun with the media on SNL if they made fun of that. But I don't know if the audience would get the jokes. David Wong, how much is... Oh, okay, skip that. Is the CCP and Tesla honeymoon over? Okay, I mentioned China before. I'll say it again. I'm not interested in criticism of China. Chinese government brought hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. As far as I'm concerned, the Chinese government is better to its people than the U.S. government is to our people. Greatest enemy of the American people is in Washington, D.C. If you think that China's a problem, it's because Washington, D.C. propaganda is distracting you from the Washington, D.C. behind the curtain. Federal government is our biggest problem. Kills more people than China. Any thoughts on why S and X were delayed? What's the possible reasons? I don't know the answer to that. I'm hoping we get that answer at the Q1 call. I'm very disappointed in that. I think that's probably Tesla's biggest miss in a long time, is not delivering S and X. Fortunately, it's a small miss because that's not a high volume set of vehicles. Frank, Virginia, if SHT was hitting the fan and the roads had accidents and traffic jams all over, would your Tesla let you drive off-road recklessly to save your family, or does the autopilot not allow this? Well, autopilot has a concept of drivable space, and I don't think autopilot will drive in the drivable space, but you would be able to drive your Tesla. Tesla would not stop you from driving off-road. I don't think Tesla would stop. I don't think Tesla is designed to stop you from making reckless decisions. Oh my God. David Wong has been banned. I'm not interested in people coming on my channel and making bogus trash criticisms that don't make any sense, that are nonsense. When all, there was, for the people who didn't follow it, there was an incident at some Chinese car show. Some woman gets on the roof of a Tesla and complains that the brakes didn't work. And they went and they got the vehicle data, and it showed they were driving 75 miles an hour. And if I have the numbers correct, they were driving like 75 miles an hour, or maybe 75 kilometers an hour in a much lower speed zone, and they didn't drive properly. And the vehicle data showed it. It wasn't Tesla's fault. That's the thing. When you try to make up stuff about a Tesla, Tesla records a lot of data. When will all Elon's companies merge? They will not. How many hours a day do you work on your YouTube content? Art, great question. This is basically a full-time job, but a lot of that is thinking rather than actually working, and I enjoy it. I don't really think about it. It's probably a 20 to 40 hour a week job. I really enjoy it, so it doesn't feel like work. What are your thoughts on Consumer Reports and then tricking Tesla Model Y autonomously driving without anyone in the driver's seat? I think I covered that in the news part of the video. I think it's dumb. I have a tweet that's gone viral about it. It's stupid. I think Consumer Reports is idiotic. Okay, so new rule: if you bring up the Chinese Communist Party in your comment, in your chat comment, you get banned. I have said it multiple times. I'm not interested in your negative comments about China. China allowed Tesla to have a factory and build cars in China, a Tesla wholly owned factory. The Chinese government brought hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. Are they perfect? No, I don't care. Stop trashing China. I don't care. That's not appropriate for this chat. Hey, Warren, have you talked about the Vegas loop? I only briefly talked about the Vegas loop because there isn't really a lot of news about it. Yeah, I think Kylie Jenner rode in the Vegas loop. But you know, until they actually use it, it's not really news. Will Neuralink ever let your eyes act as a camera interface? I think the answer to that is yes. I think so. Joseph asks, Warren, what year is your goal to get to 100,000 subscribers? The number of subscribers is not really a goal, Joseph. The number of subscribers is actually less important than you might think. What's important is making good videos, engaging the audience. Like this live stream is actually going pretty well in terms of I've had a large number of viewers for a while. I'm not getting as many chats as many super chats, but you know, it's a good video. But making engaging content that people want to watch, that people click on the video to watch it, and that people watch for a long time. If people don't click on your videos to watch them, it doesn't matter how many subscribers you have. It's actually a problem for some channels that they get too many subscribers who aren't really interested in the content, and then they don't click to watch the videos, and then YouTube stops showing the videos to their subscribers because their subscribers aren't clicking on them. So subscribers is actually kind of not really the goal. The goal is just make good videos. Make good, you know, the goal is make good videos. If I make good videos, if you guys like them, if you guys watch them, then I'm doing well. In your eyes, is there only one viable EV company? No, I think that NIO might be viable. I think that I don't know enough about XPeng. They might be viable. Rivian might be viable. NIO is probably viable. They produced 100,000 EVs. I think there are some potentially viable EV companies out there. I don't think the OEMs, the internal combustion engine companies making EVs is viable. But if they go bankrupt and governments bail them out and they dump their fossil fuel business and government doesn't somehow screw it up in the bailout, then maybe they could produce viable EVs as well. Shamron asks, is Tesla looking into getting lobbyists to counter government regulations? So I have a theory that Tesla should hire former congressmen and pay them a nice salary, and their only job is to take current congressmen out to lunch or dinner and tell them how great Tesla's being to them. So that every congressman knows if you don't mess with Tesla, then when you get bounced out of office, Tesla will take care of you. Is that right? No. Khalid, I can't make you read the video. I can't make you read the video description. For people who have questions for me that I'm not answering, you might want to look in the video description for the answer to your question. When we make these videos, just for people to understand this. If you watch these videos, there's a video description, and there are links in the video description. For example, to buy the shirts. If you want to buy the shirts, there's a link. If you want to support this channel on Patreon, there's a link in the video description to support the channel on Patreon. There's this thing called Linktree, in particular, that takes you to a lot of those things. But there are other links in the video description that might be useful. Please take a look at them. Ideally, please click on them and buy shirts, support the channel on Patreon, etc. Gamer Dude, I don't really understand your question. How long do I think boring company tunnels can expand onto a national scale like what they did in the Vegas Loop? I don't understand what you mean by how long. I think they can produce 100,000 miles or more of tunnels. I think it's going to take decades, 10, 20 years at least to get there. I don't know whether you mean long in time or long in length. Manuel says, Elon talks about launching 3 Starships per day in the future. Even with how reliable Falcon 9 is, they still have to delay launches. Is it real to expect Starship to launch so often? So let's be clear. Elon talks about each Starship launching 3 times a day. And I think Elon's thinking about having 100 Starships that are each launching 3 times a day. So it's 300 Starship launches a day, not 3 Starship launches a day. So the weather's a really interesting question. I think that they have a solution for the weather problem. I think that it's possible that when they're doing launches that it may be that just Starship being larger makes it more weather hardy. I just have a hunch they've got some solution to this weather problem. I've been wondering this question myself. It's actually one of the questions I would ask Elon if I had the chance. I have a video questions for Elon, and I'm going to make another one. The video for questions for Elon was about Tesla. I would make another video questions for Elon about SpaceX. Can the data collected for FSD be exploited for other purposes? Probably. I don't think it is being exploited for other purposes, but I suppose it could be. How long will lithium-ion batteries continue to dominate the battery space? I don't see any prospect for another technology besides lithium-ion batteries to dominate the battery space. I think solid-state batteries are on the horizon, maybe, and those are going to be lithium-ion as well. Have I done a video on Hyperloop boring for California? Rancho Cucamonga resident here. There's a channel called Boring Revolution that I recommend. He covers that. I don't have anything new to say about the Rancho Cucamonga, Ontario County Airport project. I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be great. How soon till boring company tunnels across the Bering Strait? I think we're probably talking at least 10 years before that happens. Warren, what do you think about business opportunities in the aftermarket business, current and future, on Tesla products? I don't put a lot of thought into that, John. I know there's people who are really into that. It's just not something I care about. Joseph asked, with 300 Starship launches per day, what will all those satellites do? Starships do? Send satellites, ship cargo to moon, construct space station. I think primarily ship cargo to Mars. Maybe Jeff Bezos hires SpaceX to help build O'Neill colony, an orbital colony in O'Neill colony in space. I think you could see a really large rotating space station that generates 1G in Earth orbit. I think you could see putting a large satellite in orbit around the sun in Earth's orbit, but like 60 degrees offset. There's some sort of stable point. I forget what it's called. There's some sort of stable point in the orbit 60 degrees ahead and 60 degrees behind Earth's orbit. I think there's certain orbits where there's a lot of potential to put satellites where they're very valuable. One on the backside of the Earth or away from the sun for astronomy, maybe looking away from the sun. One on the sun side for studying the sun. There's a lot of potential when you really massively lower launch costs. There's a lot of potential to do stuff in space. But I think it's a really big question. If you build it, will they come? I don't know the answer to that. Who is going to build Dojo? Will Tesla design a new chip or reuse the FSD system on a chip? It's not this. It's not the FSD chip. The FSD chip in the car is 8-point integer, and the Dojo chip is 16-bit floating point. It's 8-bit integer for the chip in the car and 16-bit floating point for the Dojo chip. I think it's Samsung is producing it, but I'm not sure. Ben Payne asks, how can we make boring better? I don't have a good answer for that. I think they just I think they're doing great. What do I think of the $100 million X Prize for a CO2 scrubber that Elon is funding? It's not just for a CO2 scrubber. It's for all kinds of things. I mentioned that in the news section of this video. Lagrange points. Thank you, Cully. Lagrange points. 60 degrees offset of an Earth's orbit of the sun are Lagrange points where those orbits are particularly stable. And 60 degrees, sorry, in between the Earth and the sun, somewhere there's a stable Lagrange point, and behind the Earth, some distance away from the Earth, there's a stable orbit called the Lagrange point. What do I think about asteroid mining? I have a video about asteroid mining on my channel. Check it out. I don't think it's significant. Oh, this is a good question. Shamron, I'm in Quebec, Canada. Our electricity is hydro. How can we make this province an attractive spot for the next Tesla factory? Is it even possible? I think Ontario is more likely for a Tesla factory than a Quebec because Tesla already has operations in Ontario. Richmondville, I think, outside of Toronto. But I do think hydro is a very compelling case for battery factories. I don't know whether it makes sense to make a vehicle factory in Canada. Possible. Have I heard anything about Elon and XRP? XRP is a cryptocurrency that is associated with a company called Ripple. I have not heard anything about Elon and XRP. I think XRP is an interesting cryptocurrency. I have a video about XRP and Ripple being sued by the SEC on the channel. Are you bullish on the commodity nickel? Do you think the inflation we're seeing in some commodities, for example, in lumber, is transitory? So I don't really think about commodities much. I think that nickel is in high demand and will be increasingly high demand, so it will be increasing in value. I think the inflation we're seeing in commodities is a result of government printing money. Government is printing money like crazy, and that is inflationary. And that's why Washington, D.C. is the greatest threat to the American people. Oh, wait, where did that go? Halter Ferguson Financial. Warren, what do you think about Consumer Reports taking money from the family foundations of industrialists such as Ford Foundation? Bradford, we've already talked about this. So Bradford and I are very angry at Consumer Reports for slamming Tesla with this bogus demonstration that you can trick a Tesla into letting it operate, getting it to operate without a human in the driver's seat. And I agree with Bradford that Consumer Reports has an extremely large amount of influence from Ford Motor Company, General Motors, and oil companies. It is not a good look for Consumer Reports, but fundamentally, it's not about where their money comes from. Fundamentally, it's about their report was grotesquely unfair. If they tried the same tricks with any other car company's car, they either wouldn't be able to get it to work or it would crash, because other car companies don't have self-driving cars and Tesla does. So, we have Johnny B. Thank you for your support. I'm very surprised that United States Postal Service didn't require EVs for their contract. Seems like a no-brainer to me. I don't think there were a lot of good options for EVs for the contract. And I also think that politicians are full of crap when they say they're going to do things like this. And this is evidence of it. I don't have ideas for the X Prize solution for carbon capture. I hope somebody comes up with a good one. Do I think Consumer Reports is liable if someone mimics them and cites them? No. I think if you're stupid and you do stupid things, you have it coming. Will Tesla share their FSD-related patents at no cost with other companies? I don't think so. Joseph asks, how will Mars domes be built? I don't think that Mars domes will be built right away. I think that initially they will go underground as soon as possible. The concern is that there's a lot of radiation on the Martian surface, and I don't think the domes initially will be enough to protect the people from the radiation. I think there's going to be a challenge to build domes that protect people from radiation. Do I have any more guests planned for the channel? There is a senior editor from Jalopnik who joined in this Consumer Reports attack on Tesla, and he has agreed to come on the channel possibly next week, Tuesday or Thursday, I think. And I'm working on my doghouse project, and I have a friend who is a veterinarian who has a YouTube channel. Her name is Dr. Lindsay Butzer. And not for an interview, but we're going to make a video talking about my doghouse project. I'm going to ask for advice on how to do better on the second where I'm almost done with the first prototype. And I'm going to ask her for advice on the first prototype and how to do a better job on the second prototype. So Dr. Lindsay Butzer, look up her YouTube channel, veterinarian. She's also on Instagram. I think she's bigger on Instagram than she is on YouTube. She's great. How soon will a new space station be built to manufacture products? I haven't heard yet of anybody with plans to manufacture in space. I think a new space station is coming within the next 10 years. Is Elon an anarcho-capitalist? I don't think so. Tesla bull prediction 2025, 2030. My bull prediction for 2026 is $20,000 to $25,000 a share. 2030, I'm around $40,000 or $50,000 a share. Bull prediction, I do think it could hit $100,000 a share, but that's a pretty big stretch. That would require 100 million robo-taxis and the price of robo-taxi rides not falling that much, or Dojo as a service being bigger than I think. There's ways it could hit $100,000 a share in 2030. I think it's a stretch, but it could happen. So I think $40,000, $50,000 a share in 2030 is pretty reasonable for a bull case. When do I think Elon leaves Tesla? 5 or 6 years? What is your devil's advocate bearish view on Tesla? My bearish view on Tesla is $8,000 a share in 2030. I'm not going to sue Consumer Reports. I don't think they're liable for... I don't think you can be held liable for doing stupid articles, stupid videos. Why do you continue to use bottled water? It's bad for you, your money, and the pee. And the pee? I use bottled water because it's convenient to drink a tall bottle of water rather than have a glass of water, and because people keep sending me water for free. And I like certain bottled waters. You ever worry that of all the people, traditional manufacturers in the oil industry have made fantastically wealthy will work together to sabotage, eliminate Elon Musk? I think that they are already working to sabotage Elon Musk and Tesla, and they're just not very good at it. Ben, thanks for participating. I don't know if I missed your questions. Which do you think will reach Mars first, boring machine or Cybertruck? Ooh, good question. I think Cybertruck gets to Mars first. I don't know. I don't think the boring machines will be ready to go to Mars yet. I think Cybertruck will be first on Mars. Although I think boring machines will last longer on Mars because they will not be exposed to as much radiation because they'll be underground. Have you heard that Russia is leaving the ISS starting 2025? No. Do you think SpaceX will set up a spaceport anywhere outside of the US? Yes. Well, first of all, I think the spaceports will all be outside of US territorial waters. I think they're going to be 20 miles offshore, which I think technically makes them off outside of the United States. The ones off Starbase Texas, the southern tip of Texas, will I think technically not be in US waters. I think there will be one near Shanghai, that will be off Chinese waters. Um, and I'm not sure where else they'll put them. Maybe near New York City and Boston. So Jason Pike has been blocked because he can't let go. Do I think Elon would retire before receiving a Neuralink himself? I don't think Elon is ever going to retire. I tried retiring and it sucked. Alter Ferguson Financial, thank you, Bradford, for your support. Not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood. Yeah, it's, Elon Musk is in the fray. This is one of those things where I agree with Bradford 100%. Alter Ferguson Financial 100%. Elon Musk deserves a huge amount of credit for fighting the good fight. The Tesla team, the SpaceX team, Boring Company team, the Neuralink team, for getting in there and trying to do something that's really hard. And the annoying people who sit on the sidelines and pick holes and shoot holes in what you're trying to do, and they don't even make sense. They are losers. So, and I actually think I'm going to build on what, and Halter Ferguson Financial also says, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again. Yes. I want to echo that and put out a key point here. I've become financially stable because Tesla was successful, and I expect Tesla to rise in share value, and somewhere 5-10 years down the road, if not sooner, I'm going to have a tremendously high net worth, and I am hoping to put that into, and Ben, thank you for your kind words, I am hoping to put that into take what I gain and build something, to get into the fray and build a business that helps people. Particularly, I think low-cost housing that's designed to make life better. Cameras for security, so you don't need fences. I think there's a way of doing things, and I want to get into that. Ben, thank you for your support. I do put a lot of work in the channel, but I enjoy it, so it doesn't feel like work. Could Tesla Energy, with their megapacks and power walls, have contracts with major industrial companies in the future? I believe Tesla Energy and megapacks and power walls already have contracts with major industrial companies now. I'm going to be doing a video about that in the next couple of weeks, talking about exactly that. They are already doing that. I don't know about major industrial companies. I know they're doing it with office buildings. I know they're doing it with supermarkets, stores. I don't know, supermarkets, big stores. I know that I don't just guess that. I know that they're doing that. Do I have any thoughts on Virgin Galactic as a company? No, I don't spend any time thinking about Virgin Galactic. I don't think their launch cost is low enough for it to make sense. I don't know why people are so worried about bottled water. Don't you think Tesla will start selling standardized houses? I do think there's a chance that Tesla gets into the housing business. I have a video about why I think Tesla should make homes. But so far, they're not doing it, so I want to get going on doing it too. Because if Tesla's not doing it, we need to do it. Will Boring Company build tunnels for the Hyperloop companies? I think Boring Company will build Hyperloop tunnels, but I don't think they'll be building them for Hyperloop companies. I think Boring Company will provide Hyperloop. More from Halter Ferguson Financial. Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause. Yes. Preach, Bradford. Preach, Halter Ferguson Financial. Doge down 6% today. I don't worry about cryptocurrency day-to-day prices either. I just joined. You have a recap. Yeah, go to the beginning. A reset. Let me do a quick reset of this room. So just to be clear, there's an outline here of what I covered today. Welcome was short. Patreon question was just one question from a Patreon supporter. Tesla Q1 was the big thing, and this yellow box will be up here for Tesla Q1. If you see that box there, that means you're in that section. That's where I talked about the Q1 investor call, and that's where you want to go to. I talked a little bit about SpaceX. I did some news. I did more Patreon questions, and now we're in the Q&A. Digital Food says All Set builds Tesla homes. Digital Foods, I'll ask you a question. Send me an email with evidence that they have actually built a Tesla home as opposed to they say they're going to build a Tesla homes. Lucid Motors says they're going to build cars. They have not actually built cars and sold them to consumers. To my knowledge, Allset has not built homes and sold them to consumers. It's one thing to say you're going to do something. It's another thing to actually do it. So apparently there's a lot of people obsessed with Allset e-homes. Let me know when Allset actually builds homes. I like the people at Allset. I think they're good people, but they haven't delivered. Could Tesla be designing an ultra-efficient water desalination filtration device? I think that might be built into Cybertruck. I thought there was some sort of device that would can capture water from the air as part of the heat pump or something. Warren is the reason Tesla has no PR department. No, I think that there's a lot of people on Twitter and YouTube who are supporting Tesla like I am. What OS does Tesla use? How does anyone get the code to make the phone? What? I don't understand that question. Thank you, James, for your kind words. I don't know why you're so upset about bottled water. It's not worse for your health. It's not particularly better for your health. Surprised no one has accepted Elon's offer to use supercharger network. Any thoughts on the price terms Elon would charge? I don't think it's about charging, pricing. I think that that other car companies have not designed their cars, their EVs, to use the supercharger network. That there aren't many other EVs out there that could use the supercharger network. If you ever see these videos of people going to Electrify America charging stations, there's no one there. There aren't enough EVs out there from other car companies for Tesla to even worry about enabling them at the supercharger networks yet. But if there are a large number of EVs out there, then Tesla will probably set up an adapter to let them use it, and they'll make money from the usage of it. It's one of these interesting things. Somebody said this. People don't think about why Tesla is more valuable than a traditional car company. And an example of it is Tesla owns like 25,000 gas pumps, right? Superchargers. It's like they own 25,000, maybe they own 30,000 superchargers already. I think it's about 30,000 now. By the end of Q1, I think it's going to be close to 30,000. Imagine if Ford Motor Company owned 30,000 gas pumps, right? That's a profit center. They're making money selling electricity to charge the cars, right? So that's a reason why Tesla is more valuable. Tesla is doing things that Tesla makes its own batteries, or starting to make their own batteries. Tesla is in a lot of businesses that add value to the company. That's why they're worth more than a typical car company. Thank you, Daniel. Warren needs... Ben, I would love to interview Elon. I have plans. I would love to do a series of interviews with Elon. A Tesla interview, a SpaceX interview, a Neuralink interview, a boring interview, especially a boring interview. What am I most excited about for the upcoming battery day? I want to learn more about how AI works. Particularly because the autonomy day, they talked about the inference chip. They talked about the chip that goes in the car that helps the car drive. They didn't talk about the AI training very much. And I would like to learn more about what they're doing to train the artificial intelligence. Machine learning is about two things. It's about operating and it's about training the operation. So the chip that's in the car takes input from the cameras and puts it through some stuff and then comes up with, this is where the objects are, this is where they're probabilistic going to move, and this is how to drive the car. Input comes in, output comes out. The training changes how the chip interprets the signal coming in, changes how it takes that signal coming in and converts it to output. So that's going to be interesting. Can Tesla sell 1 million a year in India in 2030? No. I don't think the Indian car market is big enough for Tesla to sell 1 million cars in India. I don't think selling cars in India is a great business for Tesla. Selling rides in India, robo-taxi rides, minibus robo-rides in India would be a good business. And solar and grid storage might be a good business. Oh, dear God. James Graham, I appreciate your kind words. Please stop talking about bottled water. If you don't stop talking about bottled water, I will disable your ability to comment in the chat. No one cares. I'm sorry. This is not the place to have that conversation. Tesla tequila was good, but when do we get Tesla whiskey? I think we need Tesla rum. Tesla rum is more important than Tesla whiskey. I am a rum drinker, so I want Tesla rum. How much do you think SpaceX will be worth without Starlink in 2030? That's a very hard question, Art. So I think Starlink could be worth 5 trillion in 2030. And I think Starlink will be spun off, so that will be a separate company. SpaceX will probably own a large share of Starlink stock, so it will pick up a lot of that valuation. But it's really hard to figure out how you value the launch services. I don't know how to answer that question. I just don't know how to answer that question. Do you think Elon will... Oh, let's see. How much money do Tesla make when charging the cars? I thought that electricity was free. It is not free. It is more expensive than charging at home. Tesla is making money on the superchargers. Do you think Elon will build a network of tunnels in Austin for workers to use for commuting to Giga Texas? Yes. I think I think Boring Company is going to build a network of tunnels in Austin, Texas. Is there a world problem you'd like to see Elon tackle next that he isn't taking on already? Well, I'd like to see Elon take on housing, but I think he's got enough on his plate. I'm not worried about it. Are we sure that chargers are a profit center? I think that chargers are or will be a profit center. Right now it's costing a lot to build them, so they're probably not making profits yet, but in the long run they should be a profit center, yes. I don't know if they generate that much money, but I do think they are ultimately a profit center. Any ideas how to fix Washington? No. I think, well, I mean, if we could get people to wake up and recognize that Washington is lying to them, that both Republicans and Democrats are lying to them, but I don't think we're going to succeed in persuading people of that. People are committed to their team. The red team is committed to the red team. The blue team is committed to the blue team, and it doesn't seem like anything can shake them. It doesn't matter how much we are lied to by the people in Washington, D.C. The people who are committed to the red team get more committed to the red team. People who are committed to the blue team get more committed to the blue team, and the red and the blue team are working together to screw the rest of us. And the people who are committed to them. Elon mentioned early access to Starlink IPO. I don't remember him saying it, and I don't think he can do that. Do I think Tesla will start selling personal robots? Probably not. Could happen, but I don't think so. Is there... Your prediction for when Tesla Robotaxi will launch, 2022 or 2023? I think it will launch in limited use in maybe Southern California, Northern California, Texas, or Florida, maybe South Florida. I think it will launch in one market in particular first. I'm not sure which market. Probably near Palo Alto. Probably, maybe the Bay Area of California would be the first place. I think that it's got the most experience driving in the Bay Area of California or Los Angeles. I think it'll launch there first, and then once they get experience seeing how the launch goes, then they'll start launching in other cities. And China also could be very early. Stability robots for seniors. Yeah, I could see a business there. Will FSD and Robotaxi be released before 2025? Yes. Will there ever be an independent as U.S. president? No. Well, ever. Yeah, after the collapse. After society collapses, maybe. Who will allow FSD first, China or the U.S.? That's a tough one. I think that Florida and Texas and California will allow FSD first, but China could be first. That's a really tough one. That's a good question. I should ask that in a poll on Twitter. Rum is dumb. Oh my goodness. No, Jim Whitehead says he likes rum and Coke. Straight rum. Straight rum. On the rocks. I drink it on the rocks, but straight rum. Premium rum. You got to drink high-end rum. Do you plan on picking up your Cybertruck at Giga Texas? Yes. I would like to do that. All right. What's happening with Toyota licensing agreement? I don't think there's anything happening with a Toyota licensing agreement. Cybertruck to the moon, literally. I could see Cybertruck on the moon. Tricky, though. I don't know how driving on the moon will work. It probably will work. Is SNL live? Yes. Can't believe you asked me that question. Was that a joke? Broad question, but what is your favorite thing about Elon? I think it's his persistence, his so I guess there's two favorite things. One is his ability to think about such a wide array of topics and get so in depth and get such knowledge in depth on so many wide topics. But I think his persistence is what drives that. I think he's probably the most persistent person in human history. How do you feel about the Cyberlander? I don't feel very strongly about Cyberlander one way or another. Will Toyota use BYD hardware and operate with Tesla OS? No. How many Tesla shares do you own, if I may ask? You can ask. I own between 50 shares and 5,000 shares. I don't give a specific number, and it's 80 or 85% of my retirement portfolio and a significant share of some other portfolios I control, some other accounts I control, family accounts. Does General Motors have a chance in being able to develop an AI software for autonomous driving that is in any way competitive with Tesla? No. No, General Motors is not going to develop autonomous driving competitive with Tesla. No one is developing autonomous. You're going to see stories about AutoX having self-driving cars in Shanghai or Waymo having self-driving cars in Arizona. They are using remote operators. The cars are driving themselves to some extent, but there are remote operators ready to step in at any moment, and they're watching them constantly. And it doesn't scale. The business model doesn't scale because the cars cost too much and they don't last long enough. So their cost of operation per mile is $1 a mile, not counting the remote human operator. Add the remote human operator in, and why are you doing this? You might as well just have a person driving a cheaper car. They don't have the number of miles, the data, and the software to be able to make it work on a large scale. Joe M., my Starlink valuation, I think the planes, boats, semi-trucks, etc., I think those are fairly small revenue items compared to the number of regular residential customers. And thanks again to Halter Ferguson Financial for the super chat. Really appreciate that. All right, we've been going for 2 hours and 40 minutes. Do I own NEO shares? No. I own stock in Amazon. I own stock in Coca-Cola. I own McDonald's. These are all stocks that I bought a long time ago that I just haven't sold. I owned Facebook and sold it. I still own Google stock. Probably called Alphabet now. Is it possible Tesla never gets final approval for Giga Berlin? It's possible. I think it's highly unlikely, but it's possible. What's my prediction for the 10x stock price? I don't understand that question. I do think the stock price will 10x before 2026. I think it'll 10x by 2023 or 2024, but I can't control how Wall Street values a company. Why isn't Boring Company moving faster? I think that it's they're working on getting their tunnel boring machines to tunnel at higher speed at lower cost, and that's just an engineering challenge that they are working on. Do I think Tesla's been hit with a chip crisis? I don't. Abe, it's a great question. I don't know the answer. I think that it's possible that S and X were delayed by the chip problem. It seems like they're still pouring out 3s and Ys in China and Fremont without a problem. So it seems like the chip problem isn't affecting most of Tesla's sales, but that might be why we've seen a slowdown in S and X. Do I think Tesla will enable an emergency drive to hospital feature? Yes. What is the total addressable market that Tesla is going after? It's a really big number that I don't think I can answer. Tens of trillions of dollars? I don't know. Many trillions? 10 trillion? What about Xpeng Motors? I haven't paid attention to Xpeng, so I can't comment on it. All I can say is every autonomous driving vehicle that I've seen does not have the data. Tesla has billions of miles of operation and data to draw on. These other companies don't have the data. Nick Garden asks, Warren, your battery revenue model is great, but do you truly believe Tesla can hit $50,000 a share? Yes, I truly believe Tesla can hit $50,000. I'm not saying it's likely they will hit $50,000 a share. I think $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a share is more likely, but I think $50,000 is possible and even $100,000 is possible. Thank you, Lulu, for your support. Greatly appreciate it. Who do you think the heir apparent is at Tesla? Is it Drew? I think Drew Baglino is probably the heir apparent, but I also think that Jerome Guillen is a candidate for it. Um, SpaceX aims for 42,000 satellites. Why wouldn't they put 10x or 100x more satellites into the sky? What is holding them back to provide internet? I don't think they're going to need more than, well, I think 42,000 covers a lot of customers. I do think they could go further to like 100,000 satellites. I don't think they would need more than that. I think that 100,000 would really serve an awful lot of people. Are you concerned that your channel gets too popular and end up hosting Saturday Night Live with Elon in 2030? No, I don't think my channel growth will get me that popular. I might get to 100,000 subscribers in 2022. I don't think that, I think the audience for this kind of material is much smaller than Elon's audience. Do you think Tesla will add a driver-facing camera following the recent autopilot criticism? They are already adding an interior camera. I don't think Green the Only has some. If you follow Green the Only on Twitter, I think he is suggesting that they might be using that. They might be doing something about that. So it is possible. Not necessarily for the driver. See, the driver-facing camera is not important if you have a fully self-driving vehicle. So just monitoring the interior of the car might be important, but once the car drives itself safely, we don't need an interior camera to monitor the. You don't need to monitor the driver's eyes when there's no human driver. Is Warren the biggest bull around? I think that his name. They just did an interview with Bruce Burnworth. He's arguably a bigger bull. I think I'm about the biggest bull out there. Any new thoughts on rare earth materials? I don't spend a lot of time thinking about that. Which companies do you think has smarter people than Tesla and SpaceX? I haven't seen that. Neuralink has some very smart people. Will Elon reward Tesla investors with giving us shares of Starlink in the IPO? No, I don't think that's possible. Are Tesla Energy Motors solar spinoffs possible? Yes. I think a variety of spinoffs are possible. I'm a bishop in the Church of Elon, and the Pope of Muscanity supports me on that. The guy on Twitter named Rational Etienne is his handle, and he's called the Pope of Muscanity, and I believe he would agree that I'm a bishop. How much longer do you feel Elon stays as CEO of Tesla before he leaves to focus more on SpaceX? I think Elon leaves Tesla in about 5 years to focus on SpaceX and Neuralink. What makes you think all these Mobileye-equipped ADAS cars haven't been collecting data in a very basic manner? Abe, great question. Abe in the chat is a very knowledgeable guy. We interact on Clubhouse. I think that Mobileye-equipped ADAS cars are collecting data. I don't think they're collecting the same quality of data. There's a challenge that you have to know what data to ask for. And as Andrei Karpathy explained, I think it was at Autonomy Day, it might have been another thing, when they encounter a problem and they see something that the chip in the car didn't understand or didn't process well, they query the fleet to get more data. So, for example, they have said that there's really not much value in the data of driving, of lane keeping on an interstate highway, because they've already done that for many miles and they're already good at that. The challenge is collecting data on things that are difficult, and I don't think that Mobileye has the triggers to identify what data is important. I don't think they're operating a prediction engine on the same level that what Tesla's operating. I don't think that they're using interventions. Tesla has this feature called interventions when somebody intervenes to change autopilot's behavior. I just don't think that Mobileye is at that level where they're collecting the same. They could theoretically have the same data. I also don't know if they have as many cameras. You know, Teslas have 8 cameras. They have the radar and sonar. I don't think they're using the radar anymore. I don't think most Mobileye ADAS systems have as many cameras. So I think there's a lot of things that Mobileye is missing. I don't know enough about Mobileye to say for sure. All I would say is Mobileye's been collecting all this data all this time. Why haven't they? And they've demonstrated a self-driving car. Whenever you see a self-driving car demonstration, why haven't they scaled? The reason they haven't scaled is because it's not really ready for prime time. There's something they're not telling us. There's something they're hiding, probably remote operators. Kushal says the growth in number of superchargers is undervalued and ignored. Thoughts? I talked about that earlier. I think they're probably going to hit close to 30,000 superchargers at the end of Q1. We're going to see that number. It might be 27,000 or 28,000, but I think we're going to see them hit somewhere close to 30,000 superchargers. And you know, by now we're already in the middle of April. There probably already are 30,000 superchargers. I think they will become a significant profit center for Tesla. And they will also be an important infrastructure piece for the robotaxi network. Does your family ever get tired of you thinking Tesla all the time? Yes. Yes, they do. Yes. Also, SpaceX, Neuralink, and Boring Company. They get tired of all of it. Will the robotaxi business include an advertising component, perhaps using rider requests like, can you recommend a good Chinese restaurant to promote paying businesses? I definitely think there's potential for advertising in a robotaxi. I don't think it's going to be a big chunk of revenue, and I could see Elon being resistant to doing it because he just wouldn't like it. I also think that there might be vending in a robotaxi, that there would be a Coke machine or a coffee machine, and you could, get a soda or get a snack, and pay a couple bucks for a soda. They pay 25 cents a can. They keep it cold. It costs them 30 cents to deliver you a can of Coke, and you pay $2 or $1. I think that could be a significant profit center. Jim Bates, did you type that before I said it? Or did I say it before you typed it? Will there be drunk drivers on Mars? Yes. Is there a percent chance that Elon will end up becoming the AI overlord, going megalomaniac and malevolent that he fears once he puts the Neuralink in his own brain? Yes. There's a very small chance that that happens. And I agree with Glenn, you should read the Culture series. US, China, Europe. Would you do an interview with Meet Kevin? Meet Kevin interviewed me. Meet Kevin interviewed me. We had a great conversation. I think we went for 2 hours. Go on his channel and search for my name. You'll find it. It was a great conversation. Really enjoyed the conversation. I thought he asked great questions. I initially was not a fan of his. After that interview, I watched some more of his interviews. I didn't like his interview with Sandy Monroe. But I watched some other interviews he did, and I thought he did a great job. I think he's a great guy. Are you concerned that the disruption autonomous driving will do to the economy will slow, hinder its adoption from a political point of view? Yes. Yes, I am concerned about that. I think that government and political interests will do everything, are already doing everything they can to interfere with autonomous driving and electric vehicles. Have you considered doggy earplugs instead of the soundproof doggy house? No, I have not considered that. I don't think that's a good answer. Are you going to make an interview with Elon? I would love to interview Elon. Please tell him you think he should interview with me. I would love to do it. Will Tesla instantly Bluetooth all Teslas so they can convoy? I don't know if that's a Bluetooth thing, but I do think they're planning to do some kind of platooning with the trucks, and maybe they'll extend that to cars. Will rich people move to Puerto Rico half the year to avoid U.S. taxes? I think some already do that. What happened to the Tesla ATV? I think it comes out with Cybertruck. Thoughts on lithium supply chain and on clay mining in Nevada? All of that is covered by the limiting factor on his channel, and I recommend watching his videos. I don't think I have anything to add on it. I think his videos are absolutely spectacular. I would recommend watching the limiting factors channel for that stuff. Anything related to batteries, I do some stuff on it, but he's much better than me. Warren, when your kids complain, just quote a superhero movie. What is your superpower? Answer, I'm rich, from Tesla stock. Yeah, no. That's not going to work with my kids. Have I spoken to Kathy Wood? I participated in a Zoom call. I should say, I watched a Zoom call where Kathy Wood was speaking. I don't know if I wasn't invited to participate in the call, or I clicked the wrong thing when the call started and I didn't end up participating in the call. So I didn't get a chance to speak to her. I did hear her speaking in a Zoom call that she has with a small group of investors. You can, let's see, I answered that. So, do you think the question and answer session is as fun and as informative as I do? I don't know. It's hard for me. I'm sitting on the wrong side of the camera to answer that question. See if there's any. If no one is driving the robotaxi, could you serve alcohol? Yes. I think you would be able to serve alcohol. I picture party buses, Tesla minibuses that are party buses. Absolutely. I think that, if you run a bar, let's say you run a shopping plaza that has bars and restaurants and entertainment, movie theaters or whatever, you could buy a robo minibus and drive around in neighborhoods and pick people up and then drive them home. I think that would be a great business model for the plaza to, give free rides to their plaza to some community, and then you don't have to worry about driving there and driving home. You've got a free ride there and a free ride home. Do you think Tesla and the Boring Company will merge? No. I don't think Elon wants any of his other companies to be under the publicly traded category until absolutely necessary. Will Robotaxi pull over if you have to pee? Yes. Yes, it will. Do you think a free market will solve the high cost in healthcare? If there was transparency on pricing, people would seek care based on lowest cost, driving prices down. I think a free market would solve the high cost of healthcare, but I don't think government will allow it to happen, and I don't think political interests will allow it to happen. If Tom Brady gets a Neuralink chip, will he win 6 more Super Bowls? Maybe. Will Tesla instantly... Okay, we did that. I think we did that. All right, so let's see. Any other questions? Do you really think boring is efficient? Subways support more people per day and have less wear and tear on systems. Good question, Abe. This is a common question. I'm probably going to make a video about this. I think Boring Revolution just made a video about this that I didn't watch yet. The answer to your question is that, number one, boring company tunnels cost a lot less to bore than subway tunnels. So the cost of building a boring company tunnel system is probably less than 1/10 the cost of building a subway system. Number two, a boring company tunnel system will be designed so that the vehicles can go out of the tunnels. The robo-taxis can go into the tunnels to avoid traffic and go out and be able to take you not just from subway station to subway station, but from home to work or from destination to destination. So there's a convenience factor. They're more comfortable, they're more pleasant to ride in than riding on a subway with a whole bunch of other people. And I think this is a really simple example. If you think about it, Abe, I've been on the New York City subway a lot in the last several months. $2.75 each way. $2.75, probably the typical ride is 5 miles. So it's more than 50 cents a mile to ride the New York City subway, which is subsidized, by the way. The actual cost, they lose money on the New York City subway system, right? So that's more than 50 cents a mile. A robo-taxi would be operating at 10 cents a mile cost, right? And then, you know, depending on the route that is being taken, it may be something where you have a minibus that's carrying 20 people, and that's going to cost 2 or 3 cents a passenger mile. So or maybe even less than that. So I think that boring company is very, very much more efficient than a subway system. Maybe somebody's going to come up with a subway system that's more efficient, but I haven't seen it yet. And I've ridden, like I said, subway system in New York, arguably one of the biggest subway systems in the world. I don't find that very efficient. It doesn't necessarily go where you want to go. You get out of the train, you've got to walk a long way to get there. I don't think that's really a perfect solution. I think it's a very flawed solution. I think the bigger criticism that I've heard is that boring company won't be able to carry the volume of passengers that a full-blown subway system would carry, and I think that's just wrong. I think you just bore more tunnels. You know, you bore another level down, and you do another tunnel, and you can carry more people. If the cost of doing one tunnel is less than 1/10 the cost of doing a subway tunnel, that's why it gets cheaper. And you know, the robo-taxi system doesn't require, the robo-taxi boring company tunnel system doesn't require the same number of people to operate it, right? Because the robo-taxis are driving themselves, so there's nobody driving the train. You don't have to pay a fare when you go through because it's charged by your phone. There's so many ways it's a better system. I get this question all the time. What's the risk of a tunnel collapse during earthquakes? It's basically zero. We've had tunnels in the world for 100 years or more. And I don't think I've seen one tunnel collapse in an earthquake. Earthquakes cause a lot of problems on the surface. They don't cause a lot of problems underground. What changes would you like made to the Cybertruck? I say omit the rear ramp. I don't have strong feelings about the ramp. I don't see why you'd get rid of it. The closest company to Tesla, BYD, I don't have an opinion on it. So far I haven't seen any company that's close to Tesla. When do you think we'll see the $25,000 Tesla in the US? 2023. When they said. Do you think the critics of Boring Company are genuinely misguided, or is there something behind this outrage? I definitely think that some of the criticism of Boring Company is driven by people who support high-speed rail, support rail projects. Rail projects are a way of stealing money from taxpayers. They, generally speaking, are not useful. They're not ridden a lot. So like in theory, they're low cost because if they ran full, they would be very efficient. But a lot of these projects, we have Tri-Rail here in South Florida, and we were adding Virgin, I forget what it's called. There's this other rail system. No one rides it. You know, it's not that convenient. Robo-taxis are much more convenient, and robo-taxis with boring tunnels are more convenient. But the people who have invested in getting these rail systems built, these transit systems built, are threatened by Boring Company. If you and Gordon Johnson got stuck in a room for a few hours, how do you think things would go? Would there be blood? We'd probably both be on our phones ignoring each other. Yes, Julius, Japan has plenty of tunnels. It's one of the most earthquake-prone places on Earth, and I haven't heard of a Japanese tunnel collapsing yet. Did Tesla enter the VTOL market? No, I think Boring Company Hyperloops and Robotaxi make commercial air travel irrelevant. Obsolete? Albert Din, follow-up question about healthcare. What are your thoughts on why politicians won't push for increasing price transparency in healthcare? Because politicians are controlled by special interests, and special interests don't want price transparency in healthcare. Because politicians suck. Would it not be faster for the Boring Tunnel to have magnetic rails? It might be faster, and I think the Hyperloop might have magnetic rails, but for the Robotaxi tunnels, it wouldn't make sense because then they wouldn't be able to get out of the tunnel. You heard anything new about Rivian lately? I hear stuff about Rivian, but I haven't heard enough of substance. I do think it's an interesting company. What are my thoughts on Hyperloop? I think Hyperloop is going to make air travel irrelevant. Mostly. I think Hyperloop's going to be great. I think it's going to be a few years. I think they got to get the tunneling down. And once they get the tunneling down, I think it's going to make a lot of sense. Are the bears in major Tesla queue that clueless or paid mercenaries by big auto oil industry? Would love to see a deep dive into this. I think Now You Know did a video talking about Tesla Q, where they talked about how the oil companies and auto companies, especially the oil companies, have so much to lose from the shift to EVs that they have, and it costs them so little compared to their revenue to spend money promoting FUD. Thoughts on NGA electric commercial vehicles? I don't know anything about NGA. What do I think of the Ford CEO tweeting the Consumer Report video? I think that was a very, very poor decision on his part. It reflects poorly on Ford. It makes me less, it makes me like, I like the Mustang Mach-E. It makes me like the Mustang Mach-E less. I think it is a sign that Ford is threatened by the Cybertruck. Will Tesla make a luxury branded car? Tesla is a luxury branded car. If you could buy a robot limo, if you could, would you buy a robot limo? Probably not. So Jim Whitehead says commuter rail is a modest success in big cities, sometimes like New York City and Washington, D.C. I would call it a modest failure. Because it loses money. It is run by government and it always loses money. You ever saw how much like transit workers and the New York City and New York metropolitan area make? It's insane. It's like, you know, conductors on the Long Island Railroad or MTA or whatever making like $200,000 a year. It's crazy. For walking up and down a train taking tickets, and they're making over 200 grand. That's government for you. That's government and unions for you. Do you think Tesla should open a PR department to combat media FUD? No. I addressed that in the news, I think, or I think I was one of the Patreon questions that I answered. A PR department is just going to make whatever bad story means the story gets a second run with the Tesla's response to it. Will Gordon Johnson's wife make him buy a Tesla and turn him into a bull like Jim Cramer's wife? I don't think Gordon Johnson is married. No woman would have him. Ha ha ha. I have no idea. How will the Boring Company deal with tunneling through someone's land that owns the mineral rights? I think that Boring Company will primarily tunnel under roads that are owned by government with government approval. I don't think that's an issue. I also think maybe like a Boring Company tunnel under the Everglades where the government effectively owns the rights to that. How does Tesla FSD... And then I think there are states where you don't have mineral rights under your land. How does Tesla FSD affect drone delivery? So that's a great question. So I think that Tesla FSD robotaxis could serve as a delivery model, but I'm trying to remember where I saw this. Kathy Wood from ARK Invest says that that drone delivery like flying drones, like Amazon is going to have drones fly out of their warehouses and deliver products to people's homes. She's predicting that that's going to succeed. And I looked at some numbers, and I guess the problem with a vehicle with a Tesla robotaxi is it weighs like, let's say, 2,000 kilograms. And then it's carrying the product. And even though the cost of flying something versus driving something is higher on a per kilogram basis because the drone is so much lighter. I think the cost of flying a drone on like a 5-mile each way round trip, so 10 miles, is like 10 cents. So it actually is less expensive to use flying drones to deliver products as long as the products are reasonably lightweight than it does to use vehicles to deliver them. Could the tunnel machine be used for mining? I believe the answer to that is no. I believe that mining does not work that way. I don't think that tunnel boring machines are designed to mine, that mining is a different business. It's done a different way. Hi, Jan. Thanks for joining. You're late, but thanks for joining. All right, we've gone for more than 3 hours. Robo limo with hot tub. I like it. Are there prospects for Boring Company to build flood mitigation systems for cities that flood often? Tony, there's a video that Boring Revolution did where he depicted doing a tunnel from, like, if you have a river that's flooding a particular city, you start the tunnel above the city, you run the tunnel below, below or past the city, and the tunnel dumps out past the point where the city floods. And there, he does have a theory that that is something that's viable, that Boring Company will be able to alleviate flooding using boring tunnels. Yes. I don't know where it is on his channel. I think if you search the Boring Revolution channel for flood, I think you would find it, but I'm not sure. If you don't find it, message me and I'll find it. All right, so I think I've answered all those extant questions. And I am tired. We've gone over 3 hours. Thank you, everyone, for watching. T-shirts, Tesla's the next Tesla, all the T-shirts. There's a link in the video description below that says Linktree. That's a link to Patreon. It's a link to the T-shirts. It's a link to my book, Fair DUI, that I think you should read if you ever worry about getting stopped in a traffic stop. There's a few other links on there. Tip ranks, which I use to analyze stocks. So listen, I appreciate it. Check out my other videos, and thank you so much for watching.